Oh, and going live on here. There we go. Perfect. How are we, lads?
All good, mate. How are you?
Tremendous. So
Good,
yeah,
man.
really, me and the other Ryan are drinking, and we're on the protein shake. You are, aren't
What a protein, mind.
you? Cheers.
I'm losing weight. Yeah.
So this is just to give everybody listening a bit of context. Obviously, this is a collaboration between the two podcasts. So we've got the Ideas and Beers podcast, and then the Open Arms podcast with you two, Jamie and Ryan. Yeah. But do you want to talk about the podcast first of all, just to say, for the Ideas and Beers viewers and stuff, what's it about, and the story behind it and stuff?
Go on, Ryan.
Cool. So basically, me and Jamie have suffered ourselves with mental health problems in the last few years, the last 10 or so years, say. And since we've, I wouldn't say recovered, but come through a bit stronger, we decided to put our heads together, large heads, mind. And we sort of had the same idea at the same time that we said to you before, like he rang me as I was going to ring him, sort of thing. And we just thought we'd give people a platform to talk, because talking helped us massively. And we just want to help other people, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you said, obviously a lot of people would have seen the video I originally had done with Lad Bible. Like, it's like, I think I looked at it the other day, and it had something like 650,000 views or something.
That's crazy.
On Instagram, and I was sat to think, there's a lot of faces that would have seen my face, kind of thing, like, you know.
Got this far.
Nah, they should be so lucky. It was Kelly Holmes was the issue, not me. But no, it was one of the things, like I said, like what Ryan said, I sat here on the night after it all happened, and I was sitting here thinking, oh, I'd love to do something like that again. And literally, like you said, I rang him. I said, oh, do you want to do a podcast? He was like, you serious? I was like, well, in so many words, like, you know, and I was, yeah, let's get it going. Let's do something, I said. Let's give people something to talk about. I said, because I never felt this, speaking to a stranger, I never felt so good, like, speaking out. And then he was like, yeah, and literally within like 3 hours, we'd had everything. We had the name, we had the logo, we had everything kind of put together. The only thing we didn't have was a recording device. And then it just so happens I had an iPad or tablet, downstairs that I could use, like, you know?
Yeah. It's amazing how it comes together. Like I was saying to you before, obviously before we started recording, wasn't it? Like I think it's well needed. You know, something like this, a mental health podcast, where you've got, you know, local people, normal people just going on and literally talking about, you know, issues that they've had in different capacities. And like, obviously there's so many people out there which have gone through the same sort of things. And I think it's just refreshing then to hear somebody, you know, even if you don't know them, but you know they're from the same area as you, just know that they're, you know, that other people are going through it as well. It's the same, you know, like they said as well, it's, people say, obviously, you know, like reading books, for example, you know, you're getting years worth of knowledge from reading a book that other, you know, and personal experiences that other people have gone through. And I suppose, you know, with the podcast in this sense, you know, within an hour podcast, you're hearing somebody's full story about, you know, the issues that they've gone through. And I suppose, you know, even if you haven't experienced mental health issues yourself, then, you know, if you're listening to that podcast, you can kind of, you know, you might have ways to safeguard your own mental health and to stop you going down the same route. And it's the same thing as like reading a book. You know, it's educating yourself, really, isn't it?
Mate, honestly, some of the messages we've had of like local boys who I never thought would have struggled or been a struggler is like, it's overwhelming even. It's like, it probably has taken me aback, like, the last couple of weeks. Bonkers.
And even some people who you may know them personally, and I know myself that they're struggling, and they've messaged me saying that I've never really thought about talking because I've always been ashamed as such, like the stigma and the kind of the persona on it, innit? But they've messaged me saying I would love to talk. Like they're feeling to the point where they're going, I actually want to do it. I want to step forward and talk, like, you know. And that was the whole aim. The whole aim was to help local people, because obviously throughout the years going down, even whether it was a case of people weren't taking their own lives, that sad things were happening and they were quite close to home, kind of thing. And for me, I've always struggled in terms of talking to people. I will talk to certain people, not to a wider audience. Like Ryan said, like, honestly, the messages we've had, like, we won't obviously mention anyone, of course not, but like the messages we've had have been, honestly, I wake up in the morning and I'm getting a message of someone or on Twitter, on Facebook, and I'm sat there with a massive grin on my face because I'm
Yeah.
thinking, like we've done that, you know, we've made them feel to the point where, yeah, and we're doing it for free. Like I said to him yesterday, funny enough, saying, "No, it's like a shift, this isn't it?" I said, "We sign on shift, we sign off shift now."
I think our ultimate aim as well is not just to get people talking. Is I think we want to raise money as well. I mean, for local mental health, rather than, I know you've got the mind and you've got Samaritans and stuff, but something local, even if it's like Kevin Coidwood or just raise some money for them. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that'd be helpful as well. Then,
there's loads of little local charities which are we're operating. It's just finding them, really, isn't it? It's finding out where these local charities are and and liaising with them. But like you said, if you're gaining that much exposure already, chances are it won't be long until these sorts of charities make themselves known to you. Do you know what I mean? Or you just kind of find one that's gonna that's very close to your hearts, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Obviously, to give a bit of background on some of the stuff I've done, obviously I worked in the mental health sector for a little bit, for a company called, I always forget the name of it, they changed it, Drug Aid, to drugs and mental health, and it was, so you had a lot of people there which were quite chaotic in the sense that they were like still taking drugs actively and things like that, but there was a lot of them which coming to the end of their kind of journey, and pretty much every single one of them, whether they were coming to the end of the journey or whether they were still taking drugs and stuff, they were experiencing mental health conditions as well. So the kind of the criteria for us to sign people up on the project I was on was they had to be they had to be have issues with substance misuse as well as issues with mental health, and pretty much every single person that I met that was had one, they always had the other. Do you know what I mean? Like some people, they pretty much, there was nobody who just had one or the other. It was like they had both every single time, and I think that speaks volumes about, I suppose about the the culture for it. You know what I mean? Like if you're taking drugs, what that's doing to your brain, or certain drugs anyway. And honestly, I thought I'd experienced issues with my own mental health until I went to work there, and it was I thought about it afterwards. I was like, you know what, I got it kind of good. I've got it really good, because although I'd had like, the odd bout of probably like mild depression, like, anxiety now and again. And like I was saying earlier, a panic attack on one occasion, very mild panic attack, in all honesty, it was nothing, thing. But I think, looking at those situations, and then and then I'm meeting with clients who can't leave their house because they're, I think I always forget the name. I think it's agoraphobic, where they big spaces. They've got like severe debilitating, I don't know if I said that right, but anxiety, where if they do go outside, they go to cross a road, for example, a zebra crossing, and they just get really, really anxious and they can't do it. Like I had a client before who I went to take into Costa, and they had the two Costas down in Swansea and Forest Park. So you got the busy one over one side, and then the other one's not too busy over the other side of Forest Park. So we went to go into that one. There's probably 3 or 4 people in the entire shop, and he wouldn't walk through the front door, and he kind of run back to the car, and I had to take him home. So it was, and I kind of, that dawned on me a little bit then. I thought, you know what, this is someone who's really, really suffering with their mental health. And it's completely impacting their entire life, whereas mine was kind of, it would only impact certain areas of my life and things like that. And I think, I think it was quite good for me to see that in a way, just because, it gave me a lot more peace about my own mental health, and thinking, you know what, I don't want to get to that stage. So I'm going to integrate good principles really now to make sure that I never progress to that sort of stage.
But that's important though, because you've just mentioned what we mention all the time. That gives you a routine. Your routine, you're giving yourself a routine to make sure you put things in place, that things don't happen. Like for me, for me to have a good day, I have to have my routine set out. I have to know what I'm doing, when I'm doing it. And if something changes, even if it's like, and I've not been diagnosed by any stretch of imagination things like the autism and like, what's it called? ADHD, things like that, right? My brother's got it, and his thing is if you change something in his routine, he goes off his mind. And I'm quite similar in the ways of, if you change my routine, which I know, like say now, if for instance, I know tomorrow I've got a team meeting, right, in work. If that team meeting gets pulled from me, that will instantly affect my mood.
Okay.
Because my routine is, if I know what time it is, I know what time it breaks, I know what time my lunch is, and I know what things are happening. But the moment you change it, my mind clicks and it's like, oh, like I literally could put me on a downer because I'm just like, you've changed my ways now. That's why it's so important for me to have a routine. And what you're doing, from what I can gather from it, it is a routine. You're putting things in place to make sure that you do things for your own well-being as such. You're already like, instead of waiting to be hit by something, you're like kind of avoiding the obstacle as such.
Well, do you know what? It's in a way, yes. So what the way I look at it is, you can, we're all born with a certain brain, and as we get older, we go through certain things which will kind of either strengthen our mindset and how we feel and things like that, and how we let things define us or affect us, for example. But then we can do that in a negative way or a positive way. Do you know what I mean? So for example, like when you go through an experience, you've probably heard this term before. You kind of, rather than saying like, why is something happening to me? Why is this happening to me? You can say, why is this happening for me? Like, what's this trying to teach me? And just by switching the narrative, you're instantly giving yourself, you're rather than victimizing yourself and thinking like, oh, fucking hell, this is, this is happening to me, and this happened last week, and my money situation, shit, whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, I used to get parking tickets all the time, right? I paid out about 1,500 quid or £1,000 2 or 3 years in a year. But it was,
I shouldn't laugh because I've seen the posts. That's all.
Oh, honestly, unbelievable. It's my own fault. But at the same time, right, those parking tickets, when they were mounting up, I was always like, why is this happening to me? Like, why is this happening to me, right? But realistically, if I'd sat there and reflected on it and thought about it, it was happening because I was running around, here, there, and everywhere, trying to do 110 things. And because I was rushing, I was parking in stupid places, and then I was getting a ticket. And it was kind of a symbolic of my life in a way. Do you know what I mean? It was, in a way, if you like, it's a sign telling you to just slow the fuck down and stop running around like a blue ass fly. But yeah, like you said there, I think for me, I do, like I mentioned earlier, like I do a lot of running, cycling and fitness and things, just because I just love it and I feel better for it afterwards, both mentally and physically. And I find that doing that, it can kind of build up it can build up your mental resilience anyway. The more strenuous exercise you put yourself through, and it almost quietens your mind. After you have a long run or some sort of intense workout. But if you literally just look at things as lessons rather than shit that's happening to you, you'll always find a lesson in it. You'll always find something that you can take from it, and then you can go, right, you know what, I'm gonna let this push me forward rather than drag me back. And that's kind of what I've always done in every situation in my life. Like, I've always looked at things like, or tried to look at things eventually as lessons. And when you do, you don't regret things anymore, and you just kind of you understand then a couple of weeks, couple of months down the line why that's happened and how it's benefited your life in some way. But I think this is where, me personally, I think this is where a lot of depression comes from. Some instances, people have done certain things, or they've made certain choices in the past, for example, and they almost attach themselves to those things in the past. They'll identify with those things and kind of it's almost label themselves sometimes. And I think when you do that, it's a bit of a dangerous game, because you're constantly living in the past, and that's where depression lies, really. It's in the past and things that have happened. And then anxiety is obviously stuff that's in the future, is things that things that haven't happened or you think might happen and stuff. And I think, just living in the present is, if you can just ground yourself, do a lot of mindfulness practices and meditation practices and ground yourself, you can really start to eradicate the majority of the depression and anxiety. Not all of it, granted, but some of it.
Well, it's similar to that book I bought Nicky O'Connor, the book mindfulness and meditation and well-being for anxiety. Along them, like, the book's over there. I can't reach it because if I'll go off screen. But the book I enjoy reading, not to the extent of like some people do. Like, some people can read a book in a night. Like, that's not me. Like, But this book, it gives you kind of like, it gives you just like mental tips, like how to like potentially just relax yourself. Or other people's escape is they may go on the PlayStation. yours is going for a run or doing physical exercise. Other people may be just seeing someone, just maybe they've just seen a friend, just will take their mind out of it, or listen to a podcast. Like you hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, I've listened to that," and I just feel, oh,
yeah.
I mean, like everyone's like very different in the ways.
Yeah.
But like for me, that the reading part was massive because like I got told to read, and I was like, "No, I'm not reading." And then when I actually done it, I was like, my mind just felt as if it just went, "Oh, thank you, you've just let me like kind of just relax," you know.
You know what I found, right, as well, there's like I've always watched podcasts, or not always, like for the last couple of years, but I've watched podcasts, I've listened to them, I've watched positive videos and things like that. And like for example, David Goggins, right? Have you come across David Goggins before?
No,
I'll be honest.
He's a US Navy SEAL, right? His book is unbelievable, right? I listened to it on audio. It's called
Is it on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, right? Now, like, his story is unbelievable, right? So I think he was like 350 pounds. He's a big guy, but he's about 350 pounds, and he lost like all of his weight pretty much. You should see him now. He's shredded. He's a beast. But he decided basically one day that he wanted to go into the Navy SEALs. And he just trained unbelievable, relentlessly for months at a time to get himself ready and primed to go into the Marines. And he ended up getting in there, and he basically hardened his mindset, right? But he's like an ultra marathon runner now, and he's done loads of different things. But he is like, he's the ultimate testament for pushing yourself through difficult things in your life to kind of help you get to a place where you've got that mental clarity. And for him, he's got a lot of like demons in his head, if you like. Do you know what I mean? So when he's ultra running, he will use those kind of demons per se to fuel him, to push him. And like I do long distance running. I've done the ultra, and I've done a couple of marathons and stuff, right? And I can relate to that in a big way. Like I haven't got anything really negative to pull upon, from my past, which is, a solid foundation for me to push with. But like negative thoughts do come up in different forms while I'm running, and a lot of it is centered to kind of, just to say to quit or to stop running and this and that. And when you push through that, you're almost like you're squashing those negative thoughts and those little things that are trying to stop you. And it is really interesting. There was a point I was going to make with David Goggins actually, but if any of, that's it, I was going to say the positive video. So I watched a video the other day of David Goggins, and I was sitting on the sofa before this, right? I just didn't really have much motivation to do anything. There was a few things I needed to get done, but because I'd had a drink the night before, I was kind of like a bit, just didn't really want to do anything. And I watched one video of David Goggins where he's just talking about, he said sometimes in life, life's the one, life's like a coach, he said, right? So coach is the one that's blowing the whistle, telling you when to start working and when to stop and things like that. And he said, when they blow the whistle, we hit the dirt and you start going. But he was saying basically, if you've just got to keep pushing. Sometimes that other people are going to blow the whistle in life, for example, and you've just got to keep plowing on, keep going. And he said nobody wants to, if it's a coach, for example, if you just keep getting back up and coming back harder and stronger every time, he said, eventually they're going to stop giving you shit, that coach. And if you look at it in the sense of life, life's going to throw some stuff at you, but you're building up mental resilience every time you come back stronger. Do you know what I mean? Every time you get up from something that's happened, you come back and attack it again. And that's how you're building up that mental resilience and like you said earlier, then when you form that sort of a mindset. You don't have it at birth. Do you know what I mean? You're almost like you're hardening your brain every single time. And I think that's David Goggins. He refers to it as that as well, mental hardening.
I just Googled him now.
Yeah, anybody listening, David Goggins, go on his Instagram. You only got to watch 1 or 2 videos, and you'll want to go and run a half marathon on the spot. Like he's
ripped.
Oh, all the horses now, right? Because you just said this in this podcast. You went for a small 2.6 mile run.
I was thinking about it.
I was sat here thinking I went for a nice long 0.6 walk the other day, and I thought I was great. So don't start sitting there thinking I'm going to be running marathons because it's not going to be the case.
Right? You're not going to build for it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not built for it, right? I'd give it a go, but I'll probably give in 300 yards down the road.
Yeah.
I live in Mayo. My hills are like this. Running down is great. It's up there.
Yeah, long distance running for mental health is like unbelievable. You know, honestly, I can contest to that. You know what I mean? It's you go to a really dark place when you're doing long distance. Like for example, when I did the ultra, right, we did 35 miles around the Gower. I don't even know how many feet it was, right? It was like 6,000 or 5,000, 6,000 feet or something, right? It was crazy. But I was out for 8 hours and 13 minutes running, right? But like a lot of it was walking through mud and stuff because the terrain was really, really hard to get through because it was all wet. But like I went to a really dark place then, do you know what I mean? I got about 17, 18 miles in and I was like, I had nothing left in the tank, right? I was gone. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to carry on here. I don't know how I'm going to keep going. And I was only halfway through at that point. So, and I'm in the middle of nowhere as well. I'm down in the Gower. So I was like, how the hell am I going to finish this? And, I just kept going. I was eating and the food stopped working in the end. I was drinking water. The water wasn't making a difference. My body just felt battered. And, I just kept on plowing on. And eventually then when I got to the finish line of the marathon, which was 28 miles. So I had to run across the beach, past the finish line for where the marathon was, where I'd started. And I had to do another 7 miles. And honestly, right, there was a little table there to check in, with your band to make sure you're still in the race and stuff so they know where everyone is. And obviously I'm watching all these people finishing the marathon and I can't even describe how horrible that was for mental health, or for my mindset, because I knew I was watching them all finish and everyone's cheering them on and I had to literally run another 7 miles. And it's a difficult thing, but like, you learn a lot about yourself, you really do.
It's mad because you give me a football, right? I'll run all day. Not all day. Sometimes. It's like a different... It'll just take everything away, do you know what I mean? Like for running for you, football's for me. I've got a football pitch and I haven't got a thing to worry about in the world. And I think Jamie's the same.
Yeah, like if you're going to think about physical activity, football is that. Like, I mean, like literally, whether it's 5-a-side or 11-a-side, or even just watching football, it just takes everything away. Kind of whether it's on the TV, whether it's even watching up in Monday, it's the coldest place on earth, and it's like you just get taken away from it. Oh, the other thing for me is my kids. If I'm with my kids, I tend to find myself just out. Like, you get me? I'm gone. There's no pressure. And I can hear them on the way up the stairs, so they best stay out. It's like there's no pressure in the sense of like, I don't know. They just, even if I do something wrong, I could go out there and murder someone, but they're still gonna look at me as if I'm the best person in the world, and that takes everything away, kind of thing. You get me?
Yeah.
Like it may be different for you too because you don't have kids, but when you do have kids, you'll understand. Like when I'm saying this, now you'd be sat there going, "Oh, do you know what? Jamie said this to me." That whenever he's around his kids, you feel as if nothing else matters and nothing else bothers you, nothing else worries you. Even though you have got worries financially and things that were looking after kids, it was just, they are like honestly, it's just such a, like, I can't properly explain it, I'll be honest. It's just one of them.
I think it probably puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? Because they're obviously your priority. And I suppose when you think about like financial worries and things like that, right, they're all quite like minute things which we've all got to deal with at, at different points. We've all got to, deal with some bills and we've all got to deal with this and that. But I think when you've got your kids, for example, like obviously they're your priority. And I think it's almost finding peace within certain things of your life. And, everybody needs to find those things which really, give them peace, give them mental peace, and give them, clarity essentially. Because like you said, but there you forgot about all the other worries that you've got in the world and all the things going on. For me, right, that's paddleboarding. Like paddleboarding is, I bought the paddleboard about a month ago, or something like that. And every opportunity I get, I'm out on the water, like, either with a wetsuit or without the wetsuit. You're out in the sun, usually the sun's shining because we're obviously the month we're in now. And it's just incredible. You can go out on the water and obviously my phone's not with me. So I'm off my phone for like 2 hours or whatever it is. And, I might speak to people when I'm there or I might not. But either way, you're out in the water, you're in the sunshine. There's not a single thing in the world to worry about. Even with the pandemic that we're going through now, you literally forget about everything. And I can't even emphasize enough how good being in the water is. So whether that's like swimming or just being down the beach in general, if you are lucky enough, like as we are, to live by a beach, paddle boarding as well. That for me is one of the best things I've done. A lot of people get that from surfing and things. I think just being in the water in general, because I don't know the science behind this, but I have heard that both the sand and the sea air, they contain like microbes or like, you know, certain bacteria, whatever you want to call it, which generally has got antidepressant properties and things like that. So you can probably, don't take my word for it, Google it if you're listening. But you know, there's a lot of benefits of just being by the beach, and even the sounds, you know, the sound of the waves, you know, or if you're by a river or stream and you hear the water running, you know, it's got that therapeutic effect. Like if you notice, if you've got a meditation app, for example, like Calm or Headspace, 9 out of 10 of the things that they've got are natural sounds. You know, that in itself says it all. You know what I mean? Nature is the best healer. Just being in nature, in the woods, and, you know, hearing the birds tweeting and whatever. All of those sorts of things have got a therapeutic effect in terms of the audio aspect of it, but also, you know, visually and you know, and just the feeling that you get when you're there.
By the way, right, I wasn't laughing at you. I'm laughing at him, right?
I can't swim.
He can't swim. And you're saying I've been on the seas all this, and I'm sat, you're like, he can't swim, he'd be gone.
I'm not this much, man.
And I can see he's like nodding his head, like, yeah. I'm sat here like, game over for him if he goes in there. That paddleboard you got was all of a sudden becoming a float.
If you get a wetsuit, literally, like you just float in the water.
You're buoyant, didn't you, when you got a wetsuit on, because it's the material it's made from, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's brilliant. Honestly, I think it was on Oxwich or something the other day, and was it Oxwich or Portainen, somewhere down there?
And, when you got locked in, you mean?
Yeah, the one. Oh, yeah, not good. Nice. Not good. That in itself was a test of mental stability and mental hardness, literally. So for everyone listening, I went to use the paddleboard down in Oxwich, not in Oxwich, sorry, Portainen. Pulled up in the car park, didn't see the sign saying it was locking at 8 p.m. And my car got locked in overnight. And for anybody who doesn't know where Portainen is when you're listening, it's about 22 miles from where I live. So it's not a walk in the park. And it's, you know, bearing in mind we're in lockdown, there's no public transport or whatever. So I was like, you know, I just thought, what am I going to do here? So I ended up paying 60 quid for a taxi home. Yeah, that in itself was a
what about the next day, mate?
A challenge.
What about your bike? Cycle down then?
Went to cycle down in the morning, got 3 minutes from my house, and my derailleur on the bike snapped off. So yeah, that in itself is just, it was one of those days, right, where I was sitting there thinking, like, why is this happening to me? Like I was talking about earlier, right? It was like one of those days, like, why is this happening to me now? Because like I poured a cup of tea and the cup just like smashed in front of me. It must have had a little crack in there. I was washing the dishes, dropped a glass on the floor, and it just smashed. And I was like, what is going on? This is all in like 6 hours. Like, why is this happening? But again, then I thought about it, and I was like, you know, perhaps I am trying to run around and do too many things at once. And, you know, and I started to internalize it and think, well, what do I need to correct in my life to, you know, to get me back on course? Do you know what I mean?
Not paddleboard down Portainen.
Not wash dishes.
What were you going?
Don't make a cup of tea. I've written down 3 things for you already, mate. I'll keep an eye on them, right?
Oh, basically, that's all of my favourite things as well, pretty much.
So it's not exist ever again.
On cycle, there we are, the 4th.
One of the things I was going to talk to you about, obviously, you know, I did mention this earlier on as well, is, you know, like just being on the beach and in the sun and things like that. Like I've always found that it's unbelievably good for health and your mindset and stuff like that. But in terms of the science behind it, obviously, you know, you get vitamin D you get from the sun. So as far as I'm aware, I think we absorb it, the majority of it, through our eyes. So, you know, it's important, like, you know, just to get out and walk for a little bit any day, even if it's like a bit cloudy and the sun's, you know, behind the clouds, you still absorb some vitamin D on those days. And I think it's good to make sure you don't wear sunglasses for a certain period, a certain amount of time as well, just so you're letting that vitamin D absorb. But in terms of the effect of vitamin D, whether you supplement with it or whether you don't, it's good to supplement in the winter with it. I read an article on Psychology Today, and they basically say that, I think it's, hold on, I've got it up here. Let me get this up just so we can give a bit of context to it.
You look at that, Jim. You are the thirstiest bloke I've ever met, mind. That's all you've done is sat there and pretend to drink a protein shake when it's just squash.
So yeah, so vitamin D. What they say, obviously, if you heard of seasonal affective disorder, SAD. It's whenever there's darker times in the year and stuff like that, obviously there's a massive drop in vitamin D levels in the body. And
Right,
it has
okay.
an impact on the serotonin levels as well. So essentially what they're talking about, right, is if you hold on a sec, forgot where it is.
I want to laugh again about the sunglasses thing because Ryan bought these Ray-Bans or whatever they are, mate. He doesn't take them off.
Doesn't matter.
He got into my car the other day. They were this big.
It could be wear glasses, pretending to wear glasses. Nothing wrong with it, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so on that article on Psychology Today, it's basically saying about how people with darker skin tones have naturally got less levels they get less levels of vitamin D in the body. So, if you could say in that respect that people, they've got less levels of vitamin D and they're not supplementing, that they are prone to more, like anxiety and depression and certain mental health disorders in that respect. I don't know if there is, some stats to show on that. But for anybody listening, vitamin D is a very, very good one to supplement with, especially during the winter months, just because of it does help you produce serotonin in the brain, which is your happy hormone. It helps you sleep better and things like that as well. So it's overall, it's going to impact your life in a positive way. The other one is B12. So low levels of B12 are linked to depression. And B12 is another one. So I don't know if you've watched Game Changers. They said in that pretty much that the majority of people, regardless if you're vegan or vegetarian, even if you're on a meat diet, there's not massive amounts of B12 that you find in cattle and things at the moment in general. So most people have either insufficient amounts of B12 or some, there are a big percentage which are deficient in it. And that can be a big factor in terms of, contributing to depression or anxiety and things like that. So I think a lot of the time it's stuff that is going on in people's lives, but a lot of the time I do think depression and anxiety can be caused by for example, just imbalances in the body, like if they have low B12 or if they've got low vitamin D, or if you've got low in magnesium, for example, certain things like that. There is a guy, actually, I don't know if you two have come across him. I'm using the book as a prop here, actually. I would show it otherwise. Yeah. So there's a guy called Johann Hari. So he's written two books that I know of anyway. One's called Chasing the Scream. One of the best books that I've ever read, that is, right? It was an unbelievable book. Essentially traveled the world for 2 years, meeting loads of different people who had been affected by drugs, or they were involved in drugs in some way or another. So for example, he met doctors who had, in Canada, who had a safer injecting clinic for heroin, people who take heroin and things like that. And then he met people in prison who had been in for drugs and all this different stuff, right? So loads of different people. But it gives you a real perspective on addiction and and mental health and how people think about things. But then the other book that he's written is called, what's it called now? I'll find the name of it, right? But it's essentially about how we used to be in tribes, like that's our human strength, realistically, is connectiveness, is being in a tribe, working together, for a common goal. And, we're infinitely connected now through social media and things like that, but we're not forming tribes as much. I mean, you have like a tribe in work or with your family and stuff like that, but it's unbelievably important to have these groups of people working together on a common goal. And it's no more relevant now with, for example, with the protests that are going on for the Black Lives Matter. You've got people which are in that, and it's causing a divide. With the pandemic, they're actually physically saying we need to stay apart. And you can see it now as the things are starting to ease. People are just eager to get back out with one another because we are social beings. And essentially what he's saying is that a lot of like depression and anxiety is, one of the main root causes is due to the fact that we're no longer in these tribes. And we no longer have, this constant form of connection with other people and working together to achieve common goals. Like, back years and years ago, for example, our grandparents' age, maybe, they would have, you had little communities which would have potentially, they'd have made food for one another. And if one of them was, not getting paid till next week, they would have helped them out with money or food and, and things like that. There was a lot more community in helping one another. And we have started to see that coming back, I think, with the, with this pandemic, with what's going on. But that's I think we need more of that in the world. We really do need people to just kind of to work together and to form these communities and these tribes again. And he talks about that, Johann Hari. If you don't want to read the books, for anyone's listening, he's got 2 TED Talks. One of them is on addiction, so he talks about that, and then he talks about his other book and what the subject essentially that he's bringing up in that book as well. So that you just type in Johann Hari TED Talks, and he's done stuff on Joe Rogan as well. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, because you mentioned about like the addiction part of things. Like when we had Mark on, and like Mark has said himself, like he never suffered mentally, as in like to the point,
dark place,
like as in like a dark place where people kind of perceive mental health as in like they perceive depression. But obviously he had an addiction, and like obviously, honestly, mate, right? Me and Ryan were sat there, and we were just like that. What, like, it's, and because of his addiction, people perceived him as a bad person as well.
Yeah.
And I remember he told us one thing about a guy. He was in Wine Street. A guy walked up to him randomly in the street and said, "Oh, you're that. Oh, don't mind me swearing, but you're that wanker that fucking bet all the money away." And he was like, "What? You don't even know me? Like, what are you doing? Like, how can you say that to me?" Kind of thing. And I remember when he said it, and literally, I was thinking about it yesterday again. I was like,
what's the matter with people, like?
Yeah, like, how can you, like, oh, honestly, because obviously everything you like mentioned in the minute, I'm just like bringing it all in. I'm just like, oh my god, because you honestly, you're so clued on about things. Like,
he said that
makes me and Ryan feel like we're gonna have to get a third person in. Do you fancy doing the mental health podcast for this?
Everyone's struggling. But I think mental health is like a tree, and you've got all these different branches coming off it. You've got addiction, you've got depression, you've got anxiety, you've got
drug use,
all that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's all linked in together, and some people don't realise they do suffer with mental health.
And you mentioned about like the body, right, and the way the body works. If you get imbalances and things, right? But that's spot on, because when you're born, like you said, you're not born with depression. You're not. Oh, by the way, your newborn baby's got depression. How do you know that? Oh, it's an imbalance. I mean, it's not the case. Like, and it's, obviously, you are spoiling, because if you get one imbalance, whether that's something, I'm a lot with my hands as well, by the way. If it's an emotional thing, it imbalances you to the point, but it triggers something, and then all of a sudden you are like this all over the place, and then when you come back to that same level, you're like, oh. And I'm very much the same. Don't you mention about it's important to, like, about the stories, like, instead of looking at them as like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Instead of looking at things as like a
negative.
Not the word. Yeah, you could say negative, but like, not, instead of looking at things like a, oh my god, I can't think of the word.
That's happening to you. You mean, is it?
Yeah, instead of it being like a Oh, anyway, we'll just say negative. Claire's gonna go on now. Oh my god. Then you said about think of it like as a lesson. Like, I everything has happened to me. I still look back now. Like I when was it? It was on Friday, and I was thinking about my cousins, and I was thinking about my brother, sorry, and I was thinking about just everything in general. And I sat there and just gave myself a lesson in terms of, like, that night when I was on the bridge, well, not on the bridge, in the marina, and I was gonna, like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. I still take a lesson from that, because my lesson and my eye opener was when I went to Kevin Coyd and I walked through them doors. You can ask Ryan, my face dropped. I was like, this is realization, like, this is a wake-up call kind of thing. This is my lesson that I need help kind of thing, you know? And I still think back now, if I ever get to that position where I was then, I know exactly where I need to go. I know exactly what I need to happen. There's a lesson for me to take forward. I always keep it with me. Always, don't ever leave my side kind of thing, you know?
I think as much as I struggled back then, I wouldn't have embraced it, but I think it's made me a stronger person mentally going through all that. I know some people will use it and just, like, not use it so much and just think, oh yeah, I'm stuck like this. Yeah, I gotta be this way for the rest of my life. But I think I've used it to push myself.
Yeah, I've had people say to me before, like, what you said, but they've kind of said, "Oh, I think I'm always going to have anxiety. It's always something that I will have." And you know, my answer to that is, well, you know, like you said, but there, Jim, like, were you born with it? You know, if you were born with it, then yeah, okay, fair enough. Then maybe it isn't something you can get rid of. But you know, if it's just something that you're going through now, you can integrate different principles and different things that you do in your life. Like, for example, like, you know, we've listed some of them: running, cycling, you know, like spending time with your kids, going down the beach, going in nature, all of these different things. You know, they're things that not everybody does, you know, and especially, you know, if you're working a job, for example, right? People don't understand, I think, sometimes how much of a impact their job has on their mental health, right? Some, they might say, oh, well, I like my job, you know, I earn money in my job, you know, it's okay. But, you know, if you're not saying, I absolutely love my job, then it's quite possible that that job is going to be doing something to your mental health in a negative way, especially if you're in a high stress environment, if you're doing sales, if you're, you know, working in a supermarket, for example, or, you know, sales for me, right? I can contest to this. I worked in the sales environment for a little while and I hated it. Like, my anxiety was through the roof because it's high pressure. If you don't meet targets, you know, they're going to get rid of you. You know, and I think I mentioned this earlier on, when I was working in the substance misuse sector, right? Now, the project that we were on, it was very, like, I don't want to say money driven. That's the wrong way of putting it. You know, but it was very target driven, right? So bearing in mind, you're working with people who have got, you know, mental health disorders, they've got substance misuse and or usually dual diagnosis, the two of them together. Now, when I was working there, obviously you're there because you want to help people, you want to make a difference, and you want to improve their mental health and this, you know, and get them to the next stage, you know, of their lives. But they were getting us to sign up X amount of people per month. And I understand that, you know, if it's a funded project, you need to hit these kind of targets. But at the same time, it wasn't allowing us to actually give our full attention and our full commitment to these people who really need, you know, our help. And for me, that I ended up getting really, really anxious. And like I said, I ended up having like a panic attack. And to be honest, I'd say that was probably why. You know, there wasn't much going on in my life at the time other than that, you know, which would have caused it. But I was in my mate's house. We'd been for a night out. You know, I'd only had a couple of drinks. I probably had about maybe 4 or 5 drinks or something. You know, a couple of us went back then to his house to just chill out. And, you know, we were having a good laugh. We were just, you know, having a drink. And I just felt this overwhelming sensation, you know, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And I kind of just went quiet and, you know, didn't say anything. So I was trying to figure out what was going on. And, you know, my heart rate, I felt like I was having a heart attack, you know what I mean? My heart was going through the room and through the roof. And I kind of turned to the boys, they're all laughing and stuff. I said, boys, I think I'm having a fucking panic attack. And they were like, what? I was like, I think I'm having a fucking panic attack. And they were like, how's your calm? And I was like, I don't know. And we just started laughing. We just started laughing about it. And instantly, or not instantly, but within about 2 or 3 seconds, I'd say, you know, my body just kind of, it calmed and the sensation went. And I think it's because I dealt with it so well, because I didn't start, and I felt like I needed to just run around the room and just, you know, just go crazy. I didn't know what to do. But, you know, it's because I kind of just took a deep breath and went, you know, and then we laughed about it because, you know, I told them about it and they were like, what the fuck, how are you so calm? It was mad how much of a difference that made, and it instantly, you know, just brought me back down to a level. So every time I feel like, you know, anxiety, you know, and you know when it's coming on, don't you? You get like that little sensation. Whenever I feel anxiety building, I kind of just take a step back, I stop, and I'll just go, you know, and it's just a slow breath. And honestly, it makes such a difference. Breathing is underrated. I think, and I said this to somebody the other day, breathing, or proper breathing, needs to be taught in school. You know, it should be something that is integrated, not just you know, not from a survival standpoint. Obviously, we know how to breathe. You know what I mean? Kids know how to breathe. It just happens naturally. But you know, if you breathe in certain ways, it can impact, you know, your energy levels and your mood. For example, if you do quite like you know, faster paced breathing and things, you can actually, you know, start to build up energy, you know. So if you do that before a run, for example, it can make a difference. Or if you slow it down and you calm your breath and you're breathing in for say 3 or 4 and then you're breathing out for 7 or 8, you're actually, you know, slowing your heart rate and, you know, you're calming yourself down. And that, you know, if you're going to bed, for example, it's, you know, you'll fall asleep like that. You know what I mean? If you're doing really controlled breathing.
That's in that book I was reading about breathing techniques. Like so the way you breathe will help the way your mind thinks.
Yeah, there's a guy called Dan Brule, and his book is literally called Breathe. So he's coached Tony Robbins, right? And you know, pretty much everyone knows Tony Robbins. Like, he is the main coach, isn't he? You know what I mean? But this guy has actually coached Tony Robbins on breathing techniques and things like that. Another guy is Wim Hof. So the Wim Hof breathing method, he's a big advocate for cold therapy for mental health and anxiety. So if you look into Wim Hof, just to give you a bit of an insight, his wife committed suicide, I think about 15, 20 years ago. And he kind of went on a bit of a self-discovery journey, not so much about himself, but about things you can do to really, you know, why do people get to that stage, you know, in their lives? You know, I mean, what's affecting them? So he holds like 25 or 30 world records. You know, it's unbelievable the stuff that he's done. But he's a big advocate for cold baths, so ice baths, cold showers, and I've been doing this for over a year now, and I love cold showers. I feel amazing from it. But also the breathing technique. So he's developed his own breathing technique, really, which is, you know, essentially you just kind of you breathe in fully, and then you breathe out half, and you breathe in again, and you do that for about 30 to 40. Then you hold it, you breathe all the way out and hold, and then you breathe in all the way, hold that for about 15, 20 seconds, and you repeat it. And honestly, I've tried this now for a good couple of months, you know, every couple of days and stuff, and unbelievable amount of energy you get from it, but it also clears your mind as well. So I really think breathing is something that needs to be taught in schools, you know, whether it's core curriculum or if it's actually extracurricular, and it's just something that, you know, somebody comes in and delivers it, just to give kids a bit of an insight. So if they are developing anxiety, because, you know, we know it's massive in schools now, you know, in secondary schools, for example, but you know, if they know how to breathe properly per se to relieve these anxiety symptoms and things, you know, you know, they're going to take that on later on in life as well. When they're in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s, it's going to stick with them, and they know how to deal with it. You don't have to, you know, go too far until you actually have to figure that out, if that makes sense.
Well, you mentioned work, and obviously I was a manager at McDonald's, and we had targets, and it was stressing me out. Do you know what I mean? It'd be busy, you won't have staff on, it'd be trying to hit the targets with no staff, I'd be taking shit home to the house, and then I just had enough, like, you know, I packed it in, got another job, and within like 2 weeks of having another job, my family were like, the difference in you was unbelievable, because I wasn't stressed from work. They were like a different person. And stress is just bonkers, isn't it? What it does to you, like.
You know, you got to think, like, how many, you know, if we're spending let's just say you spend 8 hours a day in work, do you know what I mean? That's a quarter of your day. You're spending a quarter of your day sleeping, you know, you're spending probably, I don't know, 1/8 of your day eating or whatever as well. Do you know what I mean? So, like, you know, work is factoring in a large portion of your day. So you really need to, you know, it's so important to actually enjoy what you're doing, you know, and to feel peace with it, you know, with what you're doing, or at least feel that you're making a difference. You know, because if you feel like you're making a difference in your job, then you can, you know, even if you don't like the job per se, you know that, you know, you can outweigh that. You know, the good that you're doing in that job can outweigh the where you feel about the job, or if it does make you a little anxious now and again and stuff like that. And, you know, I think when one outweighs the other in a negative way, that's when you really need to take a look and take a step back and go, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Like Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, the Stanford commencement speech, I think he says about it in that, right? That's the best speech I've ever listened to, and, you know, it's definitely worth listening to if you're listening to this, or you too as well. But he basically says that he used to, you know, every day he would get up and he'd look in the mirror and he would say to himself, if I was to die tomorrow, would I want to do, or would I do what I'm about to do today? And he said, if the answer was no for, you know, however many days in a row, or too many days in a row, then he knew that he needed to change something. And, you know, and that's how he kind of lived his life. And it is a good way to live by, to be honest, we like I said, we're spending a quarter of our day every single day in work, and it's you know, it's no good just living for the weekends. You need to kind of figure out what it is that you want to do and what you love doing. And even if it doesn't pay as well as the job that you're in now, you know, if it's giving you mental clarity, and if it's giving you happiness, continuous happiness, you know, because happiness is just something which happens all the time. You know, you have fleeting emotions of happiness. It's not a destination. People think, oh, I'll be happy when I get a house, or you know, I'll be happy when I get a dog or a husband or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Or but wife. Like, people look at it as a destination, and it's not. It's a journey. It's about being happy, you know, consistently. And, you know, yeah, you're gonna have like peaks and troughs. You're gonna have little parts of a day where you feel a bit shit, and you're gonna have weeks where you feel a bit shit, where you've got a lot of stuff going on. You know, but at the same time, you know, it's being in a job that you're really passionate about, or chasing something that you love, even if it doesn't pay that well, you know, you can find it's going to be better. Like, have you ever seen a zookeeper that's unhappy? You know, somebody caring for animals. You know, they're all loving their jobs. You know what I mean? And they get paid, you know, 20 odd grand a year or something. It's a decent wage, but it's not, you know, it's never going to make them unbelievably rich, you know, unless they work.
All the money in it. It's like health before wealth sort of thing.
100%. Well, they say the first form of wealth is health. You know, I don't know where I've heard that from, but you know, the first form of health is wealth. Without health, you know, there is no wealth, just because so many people sacrifice. You know, we all sacrifice, you know, our own health for work and for money and things like that. And I think it comes to a point in your life when you kind of go, do you know what? It's not worth it. I've done it myself. I worked through 2-3 jobs at one point. You know, I was running a business while working full time, and then running Ideas and Beers, you know, a couple of times a week. And I was just beating myself down. I wasn't sleeping, you know, because I was always out and about. I wasn't eating properly. You know, I was really running myself into the ground. And even, you know, and even my finances, I was doing all of this, most of it for, you know, for a financial gain. And I wasn't noticing it, you know, it was going the other way. You know, it felt like I was spending more money, I was losing more money and stuff. And I realized that the harder you work and the harder, you know, the more of my health I put into things, the poorer I feel.
Yeah. And that's you're spot on in terms of like the way it look is time is money as well, kind of thing, innit? I mean, like your own time is worth more than money, and that's where I look at it. I know people say time is money in terms of working is getting you money. I think of it as in like my time is worth more than that money sometimes. Yeah. So time is money for me, kind of thing. Don't get me wrong. I can also be that person who's like constantly thinking about money in my head. Like Ryan would vouch for that. The amount of hours I've done in work since this lockdown, it got to the point where I literally had burnt myself completely. Yeah. I woke up on a Monday morning, jumped on the phone because I'm in a sales environment, so dealing with people renewing their cars.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I just had no motivation at all. I just couldn't do it. I sat there. I literally cannot motivate myself just in the slightest to do it, because I just literally not giving myself time to have time for me. Like, you know, I was doing like 12-hour shifts in the house, you know.
That's crazy.
I was doing it Friday, Saturday. I was doing it Monday to Sunday kind of thing.
I was going to say, right, you know what you said then about the motivation thing, right? Like I said, right, sometimes all it takes is that one video to watch. Like what I've done now, right, I've got I've started doing like a habit tracking thing, right? So I've been, I don't know if you can see that, but there I've got like a list of habits that I want to integrate, you know, across there. You won't be able to read them, but you know, and then I'm ticking them off then on the corresponding dates and stuff like that. And you know, for example, one of them is watch a positive video, right? Because like, you know, when I started doing this, I think it was probably the same day that I watched that David Goggins video, and it just completely, like, I literally got up, I did a workout, I did a Wim Hof breathing thing, I had a cold shower, you know, I had my supplements, I ate 5 fruit, and you know, I done all this. Then I felt all across the world. I was like, oh my god!
I tell you what, we'll get that David Goggins on you, and I'll contact you.
Yeah. It is like, it was just that one video, you know, that makes a difference. And I think that's why I always say, like, you know, it's just that one thing. Just put yourself out there. If you haven't got the motivation, like you said there, right? Like, just make a habit essentially of just, you know, every day you're going to listen to a podcast, or every day you're going to watch a positive video, or just whatever, you know, one thing you want to do, whatever it is, you know, set you off for a really good day. Do that one thing. So for me, like I said, positive video. If I watch something like David Goggins, one of his videos, instantly I'm like, right, I'm ready to go. I feel pumped. You know, I'm ready to attack the day. So that's one of the main things I would say. Keep going on to that as well, like the habits I was talking about. Keeping a daily journal, I find that's really, really helpful for me. So literally, I was speaking to one of my friends the other day, and I told him I was doing a daily journal. He ended up going and doing a daily journal, and you know, so he does a daily journal, which is an account of his feelings and thoughts that day, and how things went, and if anything pissed him off and whatever. And then the other side of that, then at the end of that was a gratitude journal. So just stuff that you're thankful for, and you know, and it can be simple stuff as well. Do you know what I mean? You can say generic things, like, you know, obvious things like family and friends and this and that. But what I tend to do is I'll go for the more obscure and like smaller things. For example, like being, you know, swimming in the sea, you know, with the sun on my face, for example, and things like that. You know, just those small little moments that you appreciate, because what you're doing when you write them in that book, you're just reminding yourself of the things that really, you know, make you happy. And my friend Emma Price, so she's got her own podcast, Emma's Happy List. When I was on there with her, she said that, you know, for example, like floating in the sea, right? Floating in the sea like that, just looking up. That's one of her happy things. You know what I mean? That's something that she always did this. She did this before she had the podcast. She'd have a happy list of things. So when she feels a bit shit, she can go look at this happy list. You know, see, for example, like cooking, you know, cooking or baking might make her happy. She goes, oh, well, actually, I can't go to the sea now because it's, you know, raining or whatever, but I can cook or I can bake, you know, and then she knows that's going to change her, alter her mindset. You know what I mean? So I
There
think
was something similar I had from my counsellor to that, like not to the extent of what you're saying, but it was things where you were like a gratitude list in terms of, so when I went into a counselling session, they'd ask me, right, out of 1 to 100, 1 be the worst, 100 be the best, what's your current mood? Don't think about it, just write the number down. So let's say now, I think the number was like 64, so I wrote it down, left it. They're like, right, okay, so what we want to do now, we want you to make a list, write down a list of things you are good in your life. So write it down, because they say if you write something down, you're more likely to remember that thing, or more likely to do it because you've done it, you've written it, kind of thing. So right now, and they were like, right, okay, now quickly read over that. So similar to the gratitude list, and then read it. Now I want you to put your score underneath how you feel. And my mood changed. I was like, oh, all right, okay, hang on. So it's like this in similar sense to what you're doing in terms of gratitude list. It's just you're reflecting on what you actually got in life.
and also
That is good.
there's energy in writing something down, right? So like there's a spiritual teacher guy. He's done a TED talk. I can't remember his name, but he essentially what he says, right? And this is what I found with writing a daily journal is just writing out in a true account in my own words. You know, even if I'm swearing and whatever, do you know what I mean? And just talking about shit that I've done. You know, as if it's just me talking to myself pretty much when I'm writing it down. But you know, I find that when you do that, there's like a lot of value in it because you're getting everything out of your brain. You're clearing your brain out, right? And you also start to think about little things then that bothered you, or little things that, you know, you might have reflected on, or thought negative thoughts or good thoughts you had. And like you said, it's almost getting the negative stuff out of your brain. It's re-emphasizing the good stuff, and it's refreshing you, ready to go to sleep then. And what that spiritual teacher says though is to, if there's something that bothers you or something that really annoying you, for example, write it down on a bit of paper, scrumple the paper up, and then burn it or throw it in the bin, right? Because what he says is like you're transferring that negative energy that you've you know, of the thought that you've had, that negative thought, you transferred it onto paper. You know, you're scrumpling that paper up then, and it's showing that you're kind of destroying that negative thought, or you know, or you're burning it. It's like it's almost symbolic. And you know, and that's something he
like
talks about.
a sacrifice.
It's actually really good.
Like a sacrifice to an extent, isn't it? You're sacrificing the bad and getting rid of it, because it's like, there was something I was watching the other day. It was something along the lines of like, they were in a group and they done something similar. They put it all into like a basket, into like a burning basket. What is it that you find negative, whether there's something you got on you physically, like fags, for instance, or if it's alcohol in your hand, put it in here, we're going to burn it. And that burning thing is, that's you just saying goodbye to it. Like, you know, that's you releasing it, and you don't need to hold on to it anymore because it's gone.
Yeah.
And I was sat there, I was like, oh, I've never been a spiritual, I'll be honest, I've never really looked at spiritual stuff. Like, when everyone mentions the word spiritual, I think of Richard Dworkin, man. I don't know why, but I just think of Richard Dworkin. I don't know what it is, right? But it's just, the first thing that comes to my mind, I'm like, oh, hang on, wait there. Like, and I watched it, I think, oh, it's quite powerful. Like, a lot of people do it. Like, a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people say that it's done wonders for them.
Because, you know what you said about your friend doing floating? It's just come to me now. I have a friend on Facebook who goes to the floating pods, is it? In Uplands?
Okay, yeah. I've done that.
And he swears by it, like.
Do you know what? Very, very good stuff, that is mine. Like, I didn't have, like, some people say, like, you know, breakthrough experience, right? Where, because, like, for example, there was a woman there when I went there who, I think it was her mother had just died, right? And, you know, it wasn't her first time using the flotation tank. They call them sensory deprivation tanks, or flotation tanks. So it's like half a ton of Epsom salts in a like a pitch black room. So, you know, you can't see anything, can't hear anything, can't feel anything because you're floating in the water. And I didn't fully relax, because the guy did say to me, he said, when you're not used to it, it's difficult to relax because you're trying to relax. And if you're trying to relax, you're not relaxing. So, you know, I found I was getting like quite, you know, twinges in my neck, and I didn't really go into a full kind of tranquil, relaxed state. But I know a lot of people do. And in this woman in particular, she she was in there, and like he said to her, you know, because she was going in the same time as me, he was saying to her, look, you know, like obviously she told about her mother and stuff. He was like, look, leave the door open a little bit so there's a little bit of light going in, because he said obviously it is very, very powerful if you know, if you do go into this really relaxed state, you know, it'll bring up a lot of those emotions to the surface and stuff. And she said when I spoke to her afterwards, there's like a little chill out room with like salt lamps, and you know, you have a cup of tea and things, because you've got to rehydrate, and you've got to like, you know, you can't just go walk out and then drive straight away, because it's quite dangerous. But I was sitting there talking to her, and she said she feels much better, but she did have a bit of a, I don't want to say a breakdown, but she, you know, she closed the door all the way. She went into a fully relaxed state, and she did start kind of crying, and you know, and got a lot of those kind of emotions out. So, you know, they are like unbelievably, you know, beneficial to you. Although I think my phone's, well, I think the live video's ended on there, but yeah, I think it was amazing for her. She found it really good. Like the sauna is another one. Sauna is unbelievably, you know, good for you. I found that's one of the main things I missed during lockdown, to be honest. I think if you ask me, you know, what do I miss about, you know, this situation and not being able to go places that we want to and stuff, it would be the sauna. You know, I really do miss that, because I find when you walk out of there, you know, you're sweating a lot of the toxins out of your body, and I think that has a natural effect on your brain as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But
That's it, because that's the same with like when I said about football. Whether I'm watching, playing, or just like anything to do with football, it's the same kind of effect as such. You feel as if, like you said, the same as when I'm spending time with the kids, it gives you an effect where you just don't feel like anything else matters. Like, and for you in the sauna, you probably, you know, you're not going to be sitting in the sauna on your mobile phone.
Yeah.
You're not going to be sitting in the sauna checking Facebook, checking Twitter, checking this, checking that, checking your emails. Or one of the boys has put something in the group, you're not checking all that. You're just literally sitting there and just letting yourself just breathe and unwind kind of thing. Yeah, just literally completely and utterly relaxed. Like, yeah, and I was to the gym with me and Ryan, like when we were going together, it was just one of them relaxing things. Like, you get me, a strange feeling. And if Carl's listening, if May does here, so
Maybe knows you don't know, that's right.
if you want to get a sauna, that'll be ideal, because I've never had a sauna, I'll be honest. It's been a while.
Don't do that, Carl. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
I go all the time,
I honestly, one of the best things for me, do you know what I mean? It is unbelievably good for your mindset. Like, pardon me, one of the other things that we talked about earlier on, which I was going to mention now as well, is like the use of psychedelics as well as like MDMA and things. So I sent you some articles earlier on today, didn't I, about MDMA and its uses for post-traumatic stress syndrome. So just for the people listening, to give a bit of context, MDMA obviously was an empathogen. So essentially, when you take it, it kind of makes you more empathic towards other individuals and stuff like that. Now, for post-traumatic stress syndrome, which a lot of people who are veterans from from war and things like that, or people who like police officers, firefighters, and things like that, people who have had kind of traumatic experiences. It can be from car crashes. It can range. Death of a loved one. All these different things can cause PTSD-related symptoms, or put you into a really depressed state from it. And what they've essentially discovered is that with MDMA, if you microdose it and then you couple that up with psychoanalytic therapy or counseling, it's kind of the same, but I think psychoanalytic therapy is it's more deeper seated thing.
Extreme, innit?
Yeah, deeper seated stuff.
Yeah.
When they couple it up, the results are unbelievable. So I think when I was looking at the study earlier on, Hugh, I mentioned it was like 86% of the people within the study who had PTSD, that they give 75 milligram doses and coupled up with psychoanalytic therapy. They all basically said like there was no more symptoms and no more issues. And as they lowered the doses, the percentage dropped in terms of the actual amount of people which were coming out of the psychoanalytic sessions, and still saying that they had issues and or they still had the symptoms of PTSD and things like that. So they've done loads of studies on this, and thankfully in America, I don't know what it's like in UK, but in America I know the FDA have approved these kind of these prescriptions now of MDMA and stuff for PTSD. But psychedelics, so LSD is a synthesized version of psilocybin. I think I've got that right. So psilocybin is like magic mushrooms and things like that. Now, I think we've all been kind of taught growing up that all of these things are like, you know, really, really bad for you, and they're almost associated to like hippies and people like that. Whereas there's actually, like, for example, if you were to take, let's say, cocaine, or you know, one of these kind of manufactured drugs, if you take one of those, right, and let's say you take 10, 15, 20 times more than the, you know, the dose that you're supposed to in kind of a single sitting or whatever, you're probably going to, you know, either die or you're going to have like a really bad reaction. Whereas there's people who, I think they took 360 times too much LSD before, and they had like 30 odd hour like trip from it, but it didn't have any impact on their mental health long term. But LSD has been proved, like they've done loads of different little trials of it, and if you microdose LSD for schizophrenic patients in particular, microdose LSD with coupled up with like psychoanalytic therapy, it does have like a massive you know, positive impact on those people and the, you know, and their mindset overall and stuff. Although it kind of induces a psychosis related state, you know, it's it does have a kind of a positive impact. And one of the ones that I can contest to is DMT and ayahuasca. Well, not ayahuasca, but DMT. So ayahuasca, for everybody who haven't heard of it, it's a brew from the originally from the Amazon, right? So it's two plants from either sides of the Amazon, and somehow they, you know, years and years, hundreds and thousands of years ago even, they put these two plants together and someone's put it in a brew. Like, you know, you see the films with like Indians drinking this brew and then they have like wacky experiences. That's essentially what it's based on. And now, like the crazy thing, these two plants, right? One of them is just like a tea, and it, you know, it's you know, it just accents the ayahuasca plant. But if you take the ayahuasca plant on its own, then you will have like a powerful psychedelic experience for probably about 45 minutes or something like that, right? But then if you have the brew with it, that's like ayahuasca, that's the two of them together, and that will last for about 6, 7, 8 hours, right? And like there's loads of like, you know, I think there's loads of, not so much studies, because obviously it is an illicit substance, but there's a lot of like testimonials. Joe Rogan has spoke to loads of people about this on the podcast because he's done it himself. Like Graham Hancock has done it, and you know, Michael Pollan, for example. Graham Hancock is, you know, most people have heard of him. He's a very like famous, I think you'd call him a historian or whatever, researcher. But he says like these things should not be illegal. These things are there to kind of teach us something, you know what I mean? To help us move forward as a human race. And the reason I'm bringing this up in relation to mental health is a lot of people, for example, who suffer with alcoholism, or, you know, if they've been smoking for the majority of their life, or if they've had like drug abuse issues and things like that, some of them will go and they will take DMT or they'll take ayahuasca. They'll go on like an ayahuasca ceremony in like Peru or the Amazon, for example, things like that. And when they do, they will walk away. For example, they might have been drinking all their life, right? Like, you know, in like a really problematic way. They'll go, and sometimes quite often they will walk away from that ceremony and never ever touch another drink in their life. Like they will just, something changes like that. No kind of, you know, physical withdrawals and things like that, or mental withdrawals. It's just kind of gone. And there's a lot of kind of testimonials where people talk about that, and essentially what they think is, you know, with ayahuasca in particular, they kind of say that it's like mother ayahuasca, they call it, right? So she's there to teach you something, right? Like, you know, it's just the experiences people have from this are just bonkers, right? And you read about it, and they're all very, very similar, which is quite weird. But the interesting thing is like DMT is naturally recurring in our bodies, you know. So when you're either coming out of a deep sleep or going into a deep sleep or something like that, usually when you start dreaming, I think that's when the DMT is producing in your body, and you know, it has this kind of a, you know, that's what produces the dreams and stuff. But it's also in animals, it's in plants, and it's there's so many things, you know, around it all, but you don't really hear about it, right? And like it's very, very interesting stuff. There's probably the conversation for a different time, just because this, you know, we could go really, really deep on this. But in terms of the mental health aspect of it, right? Like I said, you know, people have taken DMT or ayahuasca and then they've never touched these drugs or these, you know, or they've never had these problems again in their life. Now, I know it's a partner of a guy I'm really friendly with. they did an ayahuasca ceremony, and one of the things that she wanted to do when she did this thing was to use her phone less, right? So she felt that was problematic. She felt like that was weighing on her mind, reading things on Instagram and Facebook, and and it was having an effect on her in that sense, right? So she kind of went into that ceremony and did ayahuasca with the with the intent of lessening her phone usage, right?
Yeah.
Now, I was speaking to her partner, and he said you cannot get a message back from her. He said she doesn't message me back. Like, they live together, right? But if he's working away driving and stuff, she won't message him back for like a week or a couple of days at a time and stuff like that. And I mean,
I think Haley may have been on an ayahuasca course then, by the sounds of it.
I wouldn't answer you, to be fair.
I shouldn't laugh. I'm teasing, but it's still, it's just, I feel like that sometimes you'll reply back to me. What's ayahuasca?
Ayahuasca and DMT, but like DMT is the active compound of ayahuasca. Now, you can take DMT from two different forms. Like, one is like a plant, like I said, from the Amazon, or the other one is from, I think it's a South American toad. So essentially, what it does, when it feels threatened,
I know.
yeah, you put a bit of poison on its back. You kind of flick that off, it crystallizes, and then and that's what you do with it. But when you do, like, it has like just this powerful like psychedelic effect. But
where you've heard that from, didn't you? Right? Sorry, right, to cut across you. White Lines.
Yeah, White Lines. Yeah.
It's the guy in the tent.
Yeah,
and it's got the frog.
Yeah.
That's what you've seen it.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying, right? Obviously, that if you look at White Lines as an example, obviously he's given this, the frog to him or whatever, and then he's give it to him. He's had this, unbelievable experience from it, but obviously he went there with the intention of sorting out some of the kind of subconscious issues that are in his mind.
Yeah.
And that's what they say about DMT and ayahuasca, right? And I think all psychedelics, you can test to this as well. So I think magic mushroom, psilocybin, LSD, they deal with some more like, stuff that's in your subconscious, but it's not deep-seated, issues that you're having. It's kind of like, if, for example, phone use, like if you want to use your phone less and things, you can kind of address those sorts of things which are pulling you down in your life. Just from taking that. James Smith, I don't know if you've seen James Smith PT. He's like the guy, he wrote Not a Diet book. He's a very famous guy on Instagram. He's from like England, but he's living in Oz now. A lot of people would have probably heard about him if they're listening to this. He's really, really interesting guy, but he openly talks about how he did psilocybin, magic mushrooms, when he was somewhere, I don't know where, and he said he had like an amazing experience from it, but he also had a realization, and he said that realization was that he, when he was working full time in the job that he was doing in England, that he wasn't happy and he wanted to do something different, and I think he ended up going on to be a PT, and from that one session, he was like, I'm going to go to Australia and be a PT. I think that's what the profound thing was. And, that's absolutely changed everything about his mindset, his life. And, he gives that up to magic mushrooms, and he says the same thing. It's almost like little things or little twinges. It allows you to see the error of your ways and twist them and move on. And I think when you talk about, for example, like DMT and ayahuasca, because it's much more powerful, I think that's when you're really delving into the subconscious. And if you've got these really deep-seated things that have gone on in your life, that's why some people, I think, have a negative experience, because it's forcing you to face those things head on. It's bringing it back up to the surface. So what they're like, there's the guy I sent you the podcast of earlier, his name is Rick Roblin. So he's the founder of MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelics. I think that's right. No, Multidisciplinary Association Psychedelic Studies, something like that. But anyway, what he is talking about, he wants to basically have, ayahuasca, but in a therapeutic sense. You couple it, much like they do with MDMA and LSD. You couple that up with like psychoanalytic therapy or counseling. So when people are having these kind of profound experiences, they're coming out of it then, but they've got somebody to really help them understand what it's trying to teach them. And I think when people have these negative experiences, every single time it's just trying to teach you something. And like, that's like, I've done DMT myself, and the experience that I had was very much the same thing as that. It was kind of, I went in, I wanted to explore what the kind of a niggle in my own life was that was holding me back. Do you know what I mean? And what I realized after doing it was just a lack of contentment with where I am right now in my life and the things that I've got, lack of gratitude, if you like. That was the one thing. And once I kind of, I had that happen like a week or two after I did it, and I kind of just had that realization. It was like a light switch just clicked, and I was like, oh, do you know what? Actually, this is the error of my ways. And now you know, I live much more in the present moment now. I'm a lot more happier. And I think, you know, the other thing which I found was when I first kind of came out of the experience, I was still in the experience, but like just after it, thing that you know, I literally, the first thought I had was, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, why don't people know about this? I need to tell people about this. And my own kind of inner voice kicked in and went, no, you don't. This is for you. And the kind of, you know, the message that I took from that was that I was, you know, sharing too much with other people. I was giving everything away and not keeping anything for myself. You know what I mean? And I think that's what the profound aspect of the experience that I had. But it's, you know, I think for in terms of mental health, I think these are things obviously which, you know, we can't really advocate because they, you know, they are illicit, they are illegal and stuff like that. But I think it's also sharing the message because, you know, the people going through these different mental health disorders and these different things that are going on, like depression and anxiety and stuff like that, you know, they don't realize that these are also things that, you know, people are not told about, but they are massive ways to actually positively impact, you know, the way they live their lives. And, you know, and there's
a big one, sorry to cut across you, the big one obviously that kind of thing that's more known and talked about now is CBD oil. And things like obviously that's one now that's known quite a bit. Obviously, whereas I find when it comes to things like this, America are usually like 20 steps ahead. Because their willingness to try things means they're able to push forward on it. Like many people say out there, so it's backwards in the way they deal with things, but in many ways, the things they deal with are actually phenomenal. The way they go forward to things, like who would have thought putting MDMA along with like all this kind of like therapy and all this thing you can have would work. Whereas obviously the statistics show, because when I was reading that article, I was sat there like, oh my God, like my thought of MDMA is someone taking it and having a wild weekend. Like, you know, not having someone who's had an awful traumatic experience, but they've been able to be given the right dosage of a substance or a drug that I deem as something that could wreck someone's life to turn your life around, kind of thing. And because obviously they're so far, because they're willing to try things, it means obviously they take steps. Like I never heard of ayahuasca. I've never heard of DMT. The only reason I could refer to it was because when he mentioned about the frog, and I remembered the white lines in my head straight away. I remembered as soon as he said it, I was like, yeah, the guy in the tree done that. The guy in the tent done that. I give him a frog, and I was looking at the frog. I have to say, wow, that thing's huge. What the hell is that? And now thinking about it all, it's just like, oh,
that's the one that I did. The because you got NN-DMT and then you've got 5-MeO. So NN-DMT is the one from the plant. Which is much more like, I haven't done that one, but it's much more fast paced, like shoots you off like a rocket, very like powerful color visualizations and things. Whereas 5-MeO is the one from the frog or the toad. And that one's a lot more slow, emotive and meaningful. So like, you know, if you want to learn more about yourself and the world and things. And what I found was for about 3 to 4 weeks after that, I was making sense of loads of different things in my life. Do you know what I mean? Things which, you know, just didn't really occur to me before was starting to make sense. And that's the biggest thing. I honestly, you can speak to some of the boys that, you know, like, you know, some of our mates, you know, obviously I talk to them fully, you know, openly about the experience and everything that happened. And also they saw the difference in me afterwards, and they said, like, you've changed so much within the last couple of days since that. You know, it's unbelievable. Like, it massively impacted me in a positive way. And that's what it's about. You know what I mean? You know, that sometimes all you need is a little nudge to put you on the right path. And for me, I found that I was chasing, and this is very relevant to mental health, right? I was chasing superficial, like, you know, shit in my life. I was chasing, you know, the fancy car and the house and the money, and, you know, like, obviously, you know, my background, like, I've opened up businesses and stuff in the past, and every single one pretty much was always about earning money, you know, and earning money and I you know, I was like, it was just because I wanted that fancy lifestyle, right? But then I thought, well, you know, and not, this wasn't like a realization I had from DMT. It you know, enhance my already existing thought about it. But like, you know, it just made me realize that some things, you know, like, life isn't about just money. You know what I mean? It's about experiences. It's about embracing the stuff that we've got around us, the people that we've got around us, just slowing down and enjoying stuff. And, you know, I was always 100 miles an hour, you know, before this lockdown, and I'm still here, there and everywhere now, but I'm still very much, I'd say, in the present moment. I'm still, you know, I like, when I'm with people now, I used to be on my phone quite a lot. Now, when I'm with people, I'm very rarely on my phone, or I try my best not to be, just because I really want to be, you know, present in that moment. You know, it's I'm getting a lot better, I think, at that. So it's very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So sounds it. Like, I'm gonna have a look at that ayahuasca stuff and DMT.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I
God.
went quite deep with that one, mate. I gotta be honest.
Oh,
It's-
I'm like, it's interesting because you're right in what you're saying, because like with those your mental health, it is an experience that you've had. Like I said, you're not born with it. You can't be diagnosed or one day, oh, your son's got that depression. How do you know that? Or he's got an imbalance in his brain completely. He has got it. Like, we know for certain. It's not the case. Like it's you may have, like they say we got cancer cells in our body constantly. We live with cancer cells and it's triggered by something.
Yeah.
Whereas mental health is triggered by something. It's triggered by an event, or whether that's a bereavement, or whether that's financially, whether that's something in terms of a tragic event, like an accident's happened to you or something like that. It's triggered by certain things, isn't it? And like that ayahuasca stuff you've read and so just spoke about, like that's why I was so quiet. I was like, oh my God, like
honestly, I caught myself.
I'll send you a couple of links to like Joe Rogan videos and things like that, right? Because like me talking about that, obviously I've only had experience with, like I said, with the DMT. I haven't had it with ayahuasca, which is a much more powerful, longer version of it. But it's absolutely crazy the experiences that people have, and right. So the way that a lot of people describe it, and this is quite, like, I'd say the same thing. It's when you actually have it, right, within about 10 seconds of taking it, like you literally, you almost get sucked into your own brain and you're gone. There's no concept of you. Like, so they'll say it's a dissolution of the ego, right? So anxiety and depression and things like that is usually attached to your ego, and things relating to your ego. Do you know what I mean? Stuff that's happened to you, or stuff that you identify with. And the concept of I is your ego. You know what I mean? When you take that away, what you're left is like, well, it's your spirit. Do you know what I mean? Whatever you want to call it. Do you know what I mean? It's like and what that's essentially what happens is like a complete and utter dissolution of the ego. And a lot of people say that you die and then you come back. And it's very, like, that's not too far from the truth, to be honest. When you experience it, you're like, that's probably the best way of describing it. It's like you die and then you come back. And, that like, that's what a lot of people, they don't fear death anymore after doing, DMT or ayahuasca and stuff, because they realize, like, for me, I'm not like a religious person, but I would class myself as quite spiritual, definitely after doing that, because, I used to ponder now and again, like, I wonder if there's something after life or whatever. When you do DMT, you know that there's much more to life, essentially, than what we know about it. You know what I mean? And what we've been told it or not, or it don't matter if you look at it from a conspiracy point of view. It's just, when you do that, it's just undeniable that there's shit working, that we don't understand. Especially because it's a naturally occurring substance. It's in the Bible, for example. Joseph and the burning bush. The burning bush is the actual tree that the ayahuasca grows on. You know what I mean? And he obviously he's seen like a technicolor raincoat and all that kind of shit. I don't know the story, but they refer to that in the Bible. Do you know what I mean? And for example, you look at the ancient Egyptians and the pyramids, right? There's a lot of I think there's a lot. I don't know if there's evidence, but there's a lot of things where they think that ancient Egyptians had this like higher intelligence, or they were using psychedelics and things. And obviously, they had like an unbelievable amount of it, greater intelligence to build the pyramids, because they said that they can't replicate what they did with the pyramids now today with all of the modern architecture, surveying and equipment and machines that we've got. So like, there's a lot of like stuff that's, we don't know about, I think. And for me, I like delving into DMT, that was the start of, figuring out what is this shit that we haven't been told and we're not, finding out about.
Mate, honestly, you were talking, I looked at the screen and caught myself, and I was like, well into you then, like, you know what I mean?
It is like I said, I'm not spiritual in any sense of the imagination. Like, I'm probably the least spiritual, like. But when you
do DMT, son.
After this, I'm going to go on ayahuasca. Never mind DMT. I'll go full in. I'll let you know what it is after.
I'll send you a couple of videos on it. Honestly, it will blow your mind. Like the stuff that people, and these are reputable people. So like Graham Hancock, he is he's a scientist, right? He's got a lot to lose by he's staking his reputation on some of the stuff that he talks about when he's related to like DMT and and ayahuasca and things like that. He stakes his reputation on his word about those sorts of things, and there's just it really opened up a different world to me. But like Joe Rogan has spoke to so many different people about it. It's definitely worth checking out some of the stuff that he's gone into. yeah, well, if you want as well with the podcast, the links to some of the studies that we've discussed, I'll put those in the comments, or I'll put them in the bio and stuff, so we can talk about that. I mean, with lockdown at the minute, what do you think is the kind of general consensus with people you've spoke to in terms of their mental health? Like, you know, do you think that people are like struggling more now than with their mental health, or you know, what do you think is the kind of is going on with it? You know, from people you've spoke to.
I think I spoke to a few boys. One of the boys in particular, I won't mention his name just in case he doesn't want me to mention it. But I know him for years, like, and he's always been there or thereabouts, but never seemed to admit it. But since lockdown, now he's realised that he is struggling massively. I stopped to see him on the way home from work last week, and he's just sitting on the house. You know, he got his kids there, he's got his missus there. It's just driving him potty, like, do you know what I mean? And his mind's just not staying busy. He's just sitting there, and it's going round and round and round and round. I don't know about Jamie, if you spoke to anyone like that.
No, that was more for like me, because like I said, something I mentioned at the beginning, like about the video of Lad Bible. Where before doing it, obviously lockdown just kind of started, kind of thing. But even then, I started to feel an effect that I felt really low. I just felt like, oh my god, like I want to get out. That I referenced it to like routine and work. So like when you leave for work, you're getting yourself switched on to go into work, and when you drive home, you're switching yourself off to get home to relax. Whereas working from home, and like I said, I'm one of the fortunate ones. I've not had any financial worries or anything, so I can't really complain in that sense. But at the same time, I've not been able to switch off myself, you know. And then was because you weren't able to do anything physically with people, as in like go to football or go and meet friends, or you know, walk through. Even if you drop someone over the Marquess, they need a lift or something, you've just seen somewhat of a normality.
Yeah.
That speaking helped us. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it at the beginning, because like, if people didn't have a platform when lockdown wasn't here, what sort of platform are they going to have when lockdown is here?
Yeah.
Like that platform in terms of what you had, if you didn't have it during like before lockdown, then you were definitely not going to have it during lockdown, you know?
Yeah.
So I found speaking and like the whole consensus in terms of people and how they feel, you could see it. You could see evidence. Like it may be just a kind of a blur of the moment kind of thing, and they put it on Twitter or Facebook. Oh, I've had a guts full of this and this and that. There's I don't want to delve into it too much, because I don't want to feel people to feel the pressure of kind of being nosy. And it's not the case being nosy, but you take notice of people when they say it, and you know there's a deeper thought to that. You don't just put something out there to say it, because you may do, but it's more 9 times out of 10 is usually something more to it. So my consensus, just even looking from the outside in to a lot of people are struggling, and they just sometimes won't hold their hands up and go, "Yeah, I am," you know.
That's pretty much
right.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, it's a stigma that people won't admit it because they're afraid that A, B, C, D will judge them and think, "Oh, he's mentally weak," or he's that sad person in the corner sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's a stigma that comes around all the time. It does my head in a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I think I found pretty much the same thing. Like people I've spoke to, I think people are, you know, even though like people are starting to, I don't want to say breaking the lockdown rules, but they're like, they're going out and about a bit more, and they're, you know, because you can meet, you know, from 2 households and stuff now. People are, you know, kind of meeting in smaller groups or meeting, you know, some of their friends now and again, and spending some time. And I think that's made a big difference. But I think, like this period leading up to this, you know, bearing in mind it's been like 12, 13 weeks or something, you know, for most people. I think that's made a big impact, you know, that on people, just because, like you said, they're not able to speak about how they feel, or maybe they're spending a lot more time with their, you know, their partner and their kids and things like that, especially if they're working from home. You know, I know a lot of people who are working from home, you know, who've got kids and stuff, they're really struggling to manage the whole, you know, to juggle it all. So I think, I think people have definitely struggled with it. I mean, what I was going to say, like, obviously we've mentioned this already in the podcast, is some of the things that you can do is literally just get out for a walk, get in nature, you know, in a woodland area. If you are lucky enough, like we are, to live by a beach, get on the beach, get in the water, or just go for a walk or a run or cycle, like, you know, just even figure out, you know, especially if you're somebody who's got kids, right? I haven't got kids, but I know that you know, whether you're a man or you're a woman or something in between, you know, you do need like you need your own private space. You need your own company. Do you know what I mean? Even if you're like really extroverted and you like being with other people, you know, everybody needs that me time, right? And I think people who have got kids and a partner and they're living in the same house with them, and especially during lockdown where they're not getting out as much, for example, like, you know, they're not getting that me time. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we know this, right? When you go to the toilet for, you know, for number one or number two, or number two anyway, you know, usually you stay in there a little bit longer on your phone and stuff to do, because it's like, that's your me time. And a lot of people, you know, men and women, I think that's pretty much, or like, you know, I think men and women as well in the bath. Do you know what I mean? When you go in the bath, like, that's your me time. Do you know what I mean? But I think even people with kids, they're running in and stuff when they're in the bath. So you haven't got...
I was just about to say it, right? I could be sitting there, minding my own business, door's locked, and my kids have worked out how to unlock the door, and they come bursting. I'm like this.
Yeah.
Going in the bath is as close as you get me to paddleboard.
It's, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It can be seen as funny, I suppose, right? Isn't it? When your kids are like, oh, what are you doing now and whatever. But at the same time, it's something small, but it weighs in on your entire day, because your personal space has been interrupted. You haven't actually done anything for you. And funny enough, my friend Emma that I referenced earlier as well, with Emma's Happy List, she messaged me, right, a couple of weeks ago. She, you know, I think we were both kind of bogged down a little bit with work, and she said, she was like, right, tomorrow morning, she was like, wake up earlier, like 2 hours earlier than usual, and she said, let's both do something that is purely for us, right? It's not for work. It's not, you know, irregardless of the amount of shit we got to get on with, let's just do something for us, whether that's meditating, yoga, or whatever. It doesn't have to be fitness related. It could be reading a book, you know, it could be sitting, you know, outside having a cup of coffee. It could be going to watch the sunrise or something. Just do one thing for yourself, right? And I don't think she realized, she did put me on a bit of a spiral with that, right? Because I started looking at things that I could do every single morning then, just for me specifically. And I was waking up a little bit earlier to go and do these particular things. So I can't remember what I was doing. It might have been like handstand practice or something. Do you know what I mean? It was just something I wanted to do for me. You know, it didn't have anything to do with my job or whatever.
Bless me.
Bless you. It was literally just something that I wanted to do. And, you know, I think everyone, whether you got kids or not, I think we all need to really just do one thing, or, you know, at least one thing a day that's just for us, you know, for our own personal development or our own peace of mind or something like that, especially during this period.
Well, that's it. That's what football was for me, because obviously with the kids, even if I was, like I said, if I wasn't playing, if I was just watching, that Saturday, hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours away was my time. And obviously when that got taken away from me, I was like, well, what am I meant to do now? Like, and I shouldn't, because it doesn't really help me, I'll be honest. Like, I'll go on the PlayStation for an hour with the boys or something, right? And Hayley hates it. Hayley absolutely despises it, because I'm sat here and I'm punching things through because I'm getting so frustrated. So in many ways it's helping, but it's not, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, why do you play it? Because it's, like I said, it's just my time for me, like just my time to put my headset on, drown you and the kids out kind of thing. As much as they mean the world to me, I drown you out completely.
Yeah.
But then it gives me, like you said, it gives me that time just to, do you know, like, because like I said, you was last, but the gym was something for me as well in the mornings, right? It's something for me to do. It's something for me to get up and enjoy. Whereas when I was taken away, I'm not fortunate enough that my back garden or my front garden's big enough. I'm not going to go and train in my front garden. I live in Mayle. I have someone come and steal the equipment. You know, it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? It's just one of them, isn't it?
You said to the gym, like going back, like I said in the podcast, going back a year ago, if you told me I was getting up 5, 6 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym, I'd Steve, all the best, mate. You told me I was doing a runner then. You told me I was getting up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym. I would have told you, bonkers, I'm not getting up that time, I don't want to go to the gym. But I done it, I think once or twice. I really felt good mentally about it. And then since that's been taken away, it's like taking routine away a bit.
Yeah, it's just, that's what I mean. It's just finding what the new thing is. Do you know what I mean? Whether that's, like, a lot of people are taking up cycling, a lot of people are taking up running.
Yeah, massive.
I've had loads of people message me about running. You know, I know Lee Davis as well. So obviously Lee does like quite a bit of running as well. He's had loads of people message him about running. You know, like one of his mates, Jay, he's like they've done a challenge. I think we did. You know, they both did a challenge, like running every day for a month or something like that. It was, you know what I mean? It was like, see how many miles he could rack up. I can't remember what it was exactly, but like, there's people who would never have really run before. They might have done one or two. They really started to push themselves. And like, I've had loads of people message me about it. I've been out with, like, when I've been running the last week or two, I probably run with like 6 or 7 different people. Do you know what I mean? Because they've said, oh, like, do you fancy coming for a run? And obviously, because I tend to do it a lot more often, I'm pushing them further. You know what I mean? Today, funny enough, Anna from Cinema and Co in Swansea, the quirky little cinema, we just went for a little run down the front, and I think she'd only run like a mile, just over a mile or something previously, like, to date, never run any further. And I didn't ask her this. I just kind of, we just started running, and I was like, we were going. And when we got, I think, like a mile and a half in, she said, oh, do you mind if we stop for a little bit? I was like, yeah, of course. We stopped, and then we started heading back. I think we did like 2.6 miles in the end. She was like chuffed with it, I mean, because it was longer than she'd done previously. So I think that's the general consensus I found in terms of fitness. So many people are doing it now, in different capacities that they haven't before, and they're starting to realize how beneficial it is to them, both physically but also mentally as well.
Yeah, like one of the go on, sorry, go on.
I guess that with the Joe Wicks, not the PE one, all the kids are doing, like, but his proper ones, his hit sessions and stuff like that. And I did find them really good. But and back away getting into out the window, didn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Another thing, like you mentioned about people taking up cycling, one of the boys, right, bought a boat. Not a massive boat, like a little dinghy boat, like you think of, and he bought an engine for it, and he just goes out in the sea, just goes, like, and he said that's his thing now, like, and he bought 2 of them. And I was like, of all the things, I think is, I'm gonna buy a boat, I'm gonna buy a little dinghy and go in, I'm gone.
Yeah.
But when you talk about like your routine, like you go for a run daily, let's say, right? That's what, or weekly, whatever. Like I know it's daily, but for me, it's like yearly. The podcast has been my getaway now, where I got my time. Because as much as I may not be talking about me, like I said right before we even started recording this, right, that the speaking to people, whether I'm speaking about myself or just speaking about them, having somewhat of an interaction with different people, that's my getaway now. That's almost like, I know I joked about saying it's like a shift. It's not. I'm only teasing. It's not a shift at all, like, but it's just, that is me time. As much as I'm with other people, it's still my time,
I think it gives us something to look forward to as well.
Yeah. On a Sunday, I'm out of it. I'm gone. I'm like, hey, in a bit, see you later. I'll be back now. 4 hours later, I'm trotting through the door. Are you feeling great? Feel absolutely fantastic.
That's what it's about. It's just finding those little things that, that make you happy. Do you know what I mean? Just writing them down as well. Like, there's so much power in writing, you know what I mean? In writing, whether it is, shit that's bothered you, or whether it's stuff, like you said, that you enjoy as well. Just keeping track of it, you know what I mean? Because, like, we know how many thoughts, well, we don't know how many, it's like a couple of million thoughts, that we have on any given day and stuff like that. And the more kind of brain cycles that we put into a certain thing, for example, like if we're worried about, I don't know, let's just say money, for example, we're worried about money, the more brain cycles that you put into that, the more thoughts that are going into it, the worse it's kind of, the more anxiety you're going to feel about it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I think it's just about, it's just about figuring out the stuff that really makes you happy and positive, and makes you feel more positive. And you don't have those worries as much then, because your mind's focused on other things. Like I know a lot of people get involved with like knitting and baking and cooking and stuff like that, because it's quite a mindful process. One of the things I always talk about is doing washing the dishes. You pour in the hot water, you put in fairy liquid in, you're washing the dishes, you're kind of, your hands are in the warm water, you're cleaning it off and stuff. And for me, that's actually always been a really mindful kind of process. The thought of doing it is,
mate, I can't.
I can't be
the whole food between my fingers thing.
Oh, well, no, you wash it first, you wipe it off first, you put them in.
But my old girl,
proper way to do it. But yeah, it's just, that's what I've always found. It's like really, it's like a mindful process, and there's so many people have different things for that. Like I said, we just walking in nature, or we just doing something like that, we just knitting, I keep using I've never knitted in my life, right? But that's just, I know some people do that.
My old girl is all over the knitting scene, mate. She loves it.
It's it literally hours and hours pass by. Jigsaws, you know what I mean? My mother does jigsaws. I don't, I'd imagine that's probably quite like a mindful
Freya, absolutely. You know, Freya will be there for hours, and I think that's Freya's escape sometimes. Right? My daughter, and it sounds daft, but she's only 3, right?
Hmm.
But you know, sometimes if like my little boy is doing an editing or something, she
Yeah.
will sit there on her iPad and she will do jigsaws in her room, and she will do them for hours and hours and hours on end. And I mean, she literally, you could see her, mate. She's like, yeah, done. And I think that's her getaway. You know, like you think, things, even at a young age it starts, because obviously I wouldn't have noticed because I was only 3, I wouldn't remember it. But now I'm seeing my own children.
Yeah.
Her jigsaws are like her.
You like.
Yeah.
I think it's like, going on to that, right? It's almost like a form of escapism. And I think a lot of people will turn to drink or to drugs and stuff like that when they're going through a lot of shit, because, you know, essentially that's what, you know, it is a form of escape in some way. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of what I found when I was in that sector. I know one of the things that you kind of wanted to talk about as well is obviously when I went to prison. So if I'll bring that up just because it's a little bit relevant to what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
So, you know, some of the kind of the people that, you know, I met and whatever when I was there, and I'll explain more to the people who are listening in a second what went on. But, you know, it's so many of the people that, you know, are going through those things, they're having, you know, they're having these kind of negative emotions or negative thoughts that are going on, and like sometimes they just don't know how to deal with them, or sometimes they're looking for a form of escape. Do you know what I mean? And I think if you look at the statistics, I think it works out right. 76% of people that are in prisons in the UK their drugs or alcohol related, right? So that can be somebody who's pissed up or drugged up or whatever, and they've just robbed the house, wherever. But, you know, 76%, that's what they're saying, right? So like there's a massive statistic on, you know, on people who have actually, you know, done that. So you look at it and you think, well, what's the reasoning behind it? You know what I mean? Why have people done this? And to give context of mine, you know, when I was 19, I opened up the tattoo studio, you know, with a couple of the other boys. You know, it was going great, right? And you know, reflecting back on it, you know, it was kind of, we were seen at a very young age by all accounts as successful, you know, just because we'd, you know, opened up a business and it was doing well and we were earning, you know, really like a decent income, you know, from such a young age and stuff. And you also had that status, right? So it was, you know, after a while, things weren't like going as well and stuff. And I kind of, for my form of escape was I like started selling drugs because I wanted to be out of the situation. I didn't want to do it any longer. And I was also in a bit of a rut. I didn't really know what my next move was, you know, and I thought like I'd almost kind of hit this point where people looked up to me, or, you know, or thought, yeah, he's got his own business and this and that, whatever. And because I could see, you know, that wasn't something that was going to go on forever. I was like, well, what am I going to do next? You know, and it was almost an attack on my ego. So I was like, what do I, you know, what I just needed to do something. Do you know what I mean? And and also I knew that the shop was going to be, you know, we were going to be shutting it and stuff. So I was like in a bit of a rut. I was looking back, I was in a very kind of depressed state of mind.
Yeah.
And you know, that was the kind of reason I started, you know, selling drugs to a few friends and stuff like that, which I subsequently ended up getting caught, you know, like 2 or 3 months or whatever down the line. Ended up going into prison. And honestly, I can tell you, right, when they said to me, right, like how long you got and stuff like that, you know, and you go through the little room just before you go downstairs, I actually, like, they shut the door, and just before they took me downstairs in the courtroom, it almost felt right, like I pulled off a fucking 100-kilo load off my back. I literally went, oh, and, you know, the guy kind of looked at me and he was like, are you okay? I was like, oh my God, yeah. I was like, I feel amazing. You know, and, you know,
I'm laughing because I could, like, you're probably thinking,
well, this is, you know, he looked at me and he was kind of like, what, are you sure? And I was like, no, I feel amazing. I was like, I felt as good in ages. And, you know, and I was like, I'm actually beaming, you know, because for me, it was like, oh, well, this is the escapism I've been looking for. And the first 2 days that I was there, I slept for 12, 13 hours each day. I don't think I've ever slept that long in my life, right? I felt so replenished, you know, after those 2 days sleep, you know, just purely because, you know, all of the negative stuff that had been going on, you know, with the business, you know, I won't go into too many details, but like, you know, all the stuff that was going on with it. And, you know, I didn't have a worry in the world then, you know what I mean? Everything, like, it was literally just all of this shit that I was holding on my shoulders is gone.
left of the
I mean,
goal.
and all I had to worry about was, you know, what I'm doing today, you know, and also what I'm going to do. Am I going to make myself better, or am I going to, you know, kind of give into my negative emotions? And I did have some, you know what I mean? A lot of them, a lot of for a good couple of weeks or months, the stuff that was going through my brain is like, why is this happening to me? I've tried doing everything right, and I've just made a few errors and this has happened. And you're almost playing the victim then. If you start playing the victim, you're disempowering yourself from making a change. You're taking that, the ability to make a change out of your hands just by saying like, well, this is something that's happening externally, or just shit circumstances. They are shit circumstances in some cases, but you can't always make sense of that. You've just got to kind of go plow on and go, right, I don't, irregardless of how this has happened, I'm going to make sure that, I'm bettering myself and I'm learning from it. And like we said at the start of the podcast, taking the lessons from it rather than victimizing myself and saying like, why is this happening? So, like I said, I was there for 9 months and I met some really, incredible people, but I met some, really nice people, right? Incredible people who didn't deserve to be there. Some nice people who, did deserve to be there, and, they just made certain errors and there were certain things that led up to it and stuff like that. But then I also met some really horrible, disgusting, vile people, and it gave me a lot of perspective. I learned so much about the world and myself in that period. I also learned about forgiveness. So forgiving people who had kind of wronged me and realizing that all of the anger and the resentment and stuff that I was bottling up and affecting my own mental health was, was that it was only affecting me. Do you know what I mean? They're not losing sleep over, how I feel about someone else. And this is the thing now, right? If anybody wrongs me, I'm very, very quick to forgive. Like I might be a little bit pissed off for a minute, but I'm very, very quick to just forget about it and to move on and stuff. I don't argue. I don't really, in a relationship and stuff like that, with friendships, I try my best not to, because I just don't like conflict. I just don't think that, we're not here for long enough to be arguing with people and stuff like that. So, I learned a lot about forgiveness and letting things go. And also I, during that period, I kind of realized the mistake of my ways in giving in to my own depressive thoughts. Do you know what I mean? My own depressive thoughts. I wouldn't say it was like really bad depression, because some people do suffer with it quite bad, and I don't want to take that away, from other people, because what I experienced was just very mild. But at the same time, it's, you go through those thoughts and you don't make wise choices when you've got those, kind of depressive thoughts. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's just about understanding when you're in those little cycles, and again, it comes back to just doing more positive things for yourself, whether it's reading or whether it's, training and stuff like that, just to make sure that you're constantly balancing yourself out and you're not allowing yourself to go one way further than the other. But I mean, with that experience, like I said, I was there for a while, and all in all, it was a really positive experience. I can't regret it, because I took so much from it. I learned so much from it, about myself and the world and things like that. And, I did substance misuse and mental health qualifications while I was there, counseling qualifications while I was there. And when I actually came out, I got a job within 4 days. So I literally just spruced up my CV, reinsured my car, and, I got a job straight away. And, granted, it was a sales job. It wasn't the best, but I wasn't letting it hold me back. I wasn't letting it stigmatize me. And, within, I think, probably 8 to 9 months after that, I went to work in the substance misuse sector, helping people with, with different conditions and things like that. And again, that's where going back to the start of the podcast, like that was when I realized the issues that I had experienced were, were nothing in comparison to other people, which gives you, it's almost humbling, because you understand that you have had some of these kind of negative emotions and negative thought processes, but there are people that are out there which are experiencing it a lot more, in a lot worse way. I ended up then going back to work deliver courses in the prison sector. So I was in Swansea University, Swansea Prison, like 3 or 4 times, delivering courses to people in there. And I think what I found, right, in terms of mental health with the prisoners, that they were all very, very anxious about how people are going to perceive them when they come out, and B, finding a job. But there was those two issues, and also they were like looking at me and saying, well, how the hell have you done this? Do you know what I mean? How are you a year or so after being released from prison coming back in and delivering courses? And I said, well, this is the thing. It's, you just can't let it hold you back. Do you know what I mean? Because so many of them like go into this destructive, cycle of patterns, thinking that they're not going to get a job, or people are going to stigmatize them and this and that. And yeah, that does happen to a certain extent, but you can't let it define you. Don't label it. So many people will take the labels that are given to them. So, you know, if you've committed a crime, you're a criminal. You know, if you're in prison, you're a prisoner, for example. But some people will take those labels on board. So, for example, if you are, and this is what when you've got people with ADHD and things like that, I don't agree with the terminology of it sometimes, because people, when they're quite young, or and they're diagnosed with ADHD, they will say, "Oh, I've got ADHD," and you identify with the patterns of thinking. Like, if somebody was to, you know, diagnose me, for example, or like to do a test on me for ADHD, right, I can pretty much guarantee I've probably got ADHD, because I'm always like trying to do 110 things at once, and I've always got like loads of stuff going on. And I found that that's probably one of my best qualities, because, you know, I'm here, there, and ever. I'm doing loads of stuff. I get to experience loads of stuff. I get to meet loads of people, and that's like one of my best qualities, I'd say. And you know, if I was to be diagnosed or speak to a doctor like when I was younger, they would have probably said yes, ADHD. A video on this topic, actually, while I mention it, is Sir Ken Robinson. Right, it's the most watched talk on TED. Most watched TED talk on YouTube. It's called How Schools Kill Creativity, and he talks about the woman who created Cats. Right, it's like the second biggest musical after the Cirque du Soleil. And he says that basically, you know, in the 1940s or whatever it was, when she was a kid, her parents took her to a doctor because she just couldn't concentrate in school. And the doctor like asked her a few questions and stuff, and he said, right, I'm going to just take your parents outside and have a chat with them. So he takes them outside, puts the music, you know, puts the radio on, and he says to the parents, right, don't say anything, just watch. And after a couple of minutes, she got up and started dancing around the room. And he said, there's nothing wrong with your daughter. She's a dancer. Take her to a dance school. She ended up becoming the woman who created Cats, the second biggest musical.
I've watched that video. We were in work, and I was on a development course, and a part of the development course was about standing up in front of people to talk. You have to present something, and I've always struggled to be able to stand up in front of people and talk, right? And the TED talk they put on was that one, just because they were trying to just perceive, obviously not tell us about how she is, but just how that person talked about this subject.
Yeah.
Like if you know what you're talking about, there's no pressure, because there's like people don't know what you're saying, they may not have a clue.
Yeah.
But I remember that video because that was the video they showed us. They showed us the guy playing it and talking about it, and they said, look, no, there's, like I said, there's nothing wrong with your daughter. Take her to dance school, and like you said, she come on to be this massive famous star. Like, and I remember that video.
It's all to do with labeling. You know, it's all to do with labeling. You know what I mean? As soon as you like somebody is labeled as something, it takes away the power that you can get from those particular traits. Everybody's got their own magic. You know what I mean? Everybody has got their own magic that they can use to kind of sprinkle out on the world and to make a difference. You know, like you look at Elon Musk, for example, right? Elon Musk is not a normal guy. You know, you can see the way he talks and stuff. There's, you know, he's not working. His brain's not working in the way that other people's, you know, do. Do you know what I mean? It's just not. But that's his magic. Do you know what I mean? That's the way he creates these unbelievable products and these things that he's doing, you know, that nobody else is doing in the world, realistically. And I think it's just about embracing them, you know, embracing your own magic.
Oh, definitely. He is absolutely genius.
Everybody's got their own magic. Embrace your own. Love that.
I think I think. Yeah, I was gonna say, put that down. Put that down in Ideas and Beers. Copyright that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you hear it anywhere, then you go mad. Otherwise, I'm taking it.
You would do that as well.
It's all yours.
You like that?
Oh, fair play. Like I said, it's just.
I've never thought about motivational speaking, Steve.
I do. I have been doing it. So I do talks now and again with in like schools, colleges, and universities. I don't do too much at the moment because you know, I'm working full time and stuff. But I was doing that for, you know, a little while, and obviously, you know, on my Instagram as well, I do some Instagram TV videos and stuff like that, just about different kind of topic, you know, different motivational type things. But yeah, no, I do stuff like that. I do some freelance work with it as well, so people, you know, book me for this and that. But yeah, no, I do. Yeah, I really enjoy that. That's actually probably one of the main things that I do enjoy. Is passing on positive messages and stuff like that about, obviously, you know, just pulling upon personal experiences and moving forward. And I think, you know, that's it. You know, everything's a lesson in life. All the stuff that I've gone through, like I said, I don't regret anything in my life, right? Not one single thing, because you know, everything that I've done, which is either a shit decision or a good decision, you know, there's been a lesson that has been learned from it, especially the bad stuff. Right? You don't learn lessons from the good stuff that you do. When things are going right, you know, you're not thinking about what messages there are to take from it. When things are going wrong, then you can take the messages, right? So that's why I actually really enjoy going through bad situations and negative things, because there's
That's
so
why
much,
I wanted to ask.
personal growth.
That's why I wanted to ask, because it's, as like I said before, I love hearing about if someone has done what is perceived as a bad thing,
Mm.
and then it shows where they are now, because people wouldn't have, if you hadn't mentioned that, and someone just met you, they would never have perceived you to be that person.
Yeah.
That's like the way, like looking at it in terms of like same as like when we talked Jonesy, is a testament to your character, because you could have come out of prison and then let that massively affect you to the point where you didn't get your qualification like you did inside. You didn't go on to get a job 4 days later.
Yeah.
You could have come out and just gone back on the same spiral, which a lot of people may do. Like, and there's probably a lot of statistics to show that does happen. People do go back and forth on the same path.
I can't remember the statistics, right? But the statistics for reoffending is like really, really high. I can't remember exactly what it is all about, but there are statistics for people who reoffend, like just crazy amounts. Do you know what I mean? It's you know, and this is where, so the guy who taught me all of this different stuff, and I ended up when I went back to the prisons, co-delivering courses and stuff with him, you know, he taught me a lot, Neville, you know, and the biggest thing I learned from him was about the labeling. So, you know, he literally said, you know, yeah, okay, you're in prison, but you're not, you know, you're just at the moment. So at the moment you are technically a prisoner, but when you leave prison, you're no longer a prisoner. You are somebody who's committed a crime and you served a prison sentence for it, but you are not a criminal. You know, a criminal is somebody who consistently does it. You know, a prisoner is somebody who is actually serving the sentence. You know, it's literally, it's very slight, but it's just about taking away that little label that you associate with yourself, right? And you can talk about ADHD, for example, things like that as well. You know, there's real power in disassociating yourself with those labels, and, you know, understanding that, yeah, these things you know, you have done these things, or you have, you know, been to these places and stuff like that, but it doesn't define who you are. You know, who you are is who you are today. You know, it don't look at, you know, what was happening yesterday and what was, you know, is happening tomorrow. You know, and that's why, you know, literally everything we do in the moment is key. So literally, if you want to be a better person, just start by, you know, complimenting somebody, and, you know, and helping somebody with a shopping from, you know, across the road, for example, and things like that. It's just all about, you know, what you can do in the here and now. And, you know, some people I know, for me, for example, right, when I was in that situation, that's kind of when I started looking and, you know, looking at books and just trying to figure out what was going on in my own mind, you know, why I'd ended up in this situation. You know, I'd gone from, you know, top of the block to rock bottom. And there's a quote which says, you know, rock bottom is fertile ground for the seeds of revolution. It really is, because when you're at, you know, also when you're at the bottom, you fall down, right? And where you thought you were going to fall it's never as far down as what you think, right? That's one thing I want to say. You know, whenever you feel like there's, you know, where the bottom, the ground floor is, and when you're going to fall and lose everything and stuff, I can guarantee when you get there, you go, oh, you know what, actually, I could have fallen a lot further. You know what I mean? And it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. The anxiety about it is always a lot worse than the actual facts. Because when you're there, especially when you're in rock bottom, I actually love being there, right? Because, you know, like I said, this is where you learn, you know, you're analyzing stuff and you're learning about you know, things, you're trying to develop things. Like if everything's going right, you don't feel like you need to make a change. You know, you stagnate, you become complacent.
Comfortable, sorry.
Yeah, you need, again, you got to shake the tree, you know, to get the acorns out to really start to, you know, to grow. Do you know what I mean? You've got to kind of, you need these things in your life, these really pivotal moments, if you like. And that's what I've always found is, like, you know, going through the shit is good, because you learn how to get back up on your feet and start again and try harder. And, you know, that yeah, all in all, it was, like I said, it was a great experience for me. Not that I do it again. You know, I do understand the negatives, you know, that of doing it, and I would never do it again. I can guarantee that. But I don't regret the situation because of how much I learned from it, and how and also how it's made me to, you know, who it's made me today.
Well, look at where you are now. Like,
the story is like a film. I said this to Jonesy, it's like a film. You've gone from being this youngster with his own business to getting mixed up in what have you, gone to prison, and then you come back out and you're back in prison teaching them.
Yeah. Oh,
It's like a film.
and it's a drop in the ocean, from where I'm
Yeah.
going to be. I don't plan on stopping. I've said this, like I don't want to. I don't want to retire. I don't plan on retiring. I want to get
Jordan Belfort.
No, I just want to be like, it's not even about the money. Like, I just want to be doing stuff that I'm just passionate about, that I love doing, helping people and stuff like that. And I just want to keep that going and just keep on exploring the different things I'm passionate about.
It's not work if you enjoy it, is it?
No. They say this, right? I don't know who said this, but they say, like, when you start doing what you love, you never work another day in your life. But going back to just last point I want to make, right? Steve Jobs, the Stanford commencement speech, which I was on about earlier. So he tells 3 stories, right? One of them is about connecting the dots, and I really relate to this story with everything we've just talked about as well, right? Because what he says is that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back. So you've got to trust that they will somehow connect in the future. So what he talks about is how when he was developing the computer, right, the Macintosh, he'd been to a calligraphy course in college, right? He dropped out of college, but he dropped in on some classes that really interested him. One of them was a calligraphy course, right? So he said it had no practical application to his life, except when 10 years later they were developing the Macintosh, they actually developed like amazing proportioned fonts and things like that into it, like amazing typography. And Windows then ended up copying the Mac. And that's why all computers realistically today have got amazing, typography and things in them. So he said if he didn't drop in on that one course, the whole world of personal computers wouldn't have the typography they got today. So, think about when you text in and stuff like that, right? Like all of that might not have actually happened, especially when it did anyway, if he had not just been to that one course. So he's changed the course of the future, and the world we live in right now just by that one course. And obviously when I look at my situation, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have met one of my best friends, Lee Hanford, who's my barber. Shout out to Lee. He's probably listening to this at some where
Is he open?
He's not.
Do a trim. I'm looking at you tennis ball, Belmosh.
If I didn't meet him, I wouldn't have been going back and forth to Carmarthen to have my hair cut. I wouldn't have opened Better Gentlemen with Scott, because we opened that down in Carmarthen. If we hadn't opened that, I'd have never met Jordan Thomas, who's a good friend of mine. We opened up a clothing website, and we went to an event specifically because we wanted a network for the clothing website. We met another guy who I'm good friends with, Cameron, and the 3 of us sat down, had a beer, and we decided to create Ideas and Beers. And this would have never come about had all of that stuff not happened beforehand. And that's why I can't regret anything I've done. All of those things happened exactly as they should have, so we could be sitting here today doing what we're doing. And and that's what it's about. I think it's just anyone who's listening to this, if you go through some shit or you've been through some shit in the past, just literally just sit there, reflect on it, and think, what's this taught me? What good has come from these little bad things which have happened in the past? You know what I mean? And sometimes like people go through shitty relationships, like just as an example, but then when they come out of that relationship, they'll end up finding somebody that they were, they're like infatuated with, and then end up getting a house and a kid and all this different stuff, and they find that one person, but they wouldn't have been looking for this particular person and the qualities that person's got, like maybe caring and whatever, if they hadn't had this abusive or destructive relationship and stuff beforehand. So it's just about, no matter what you're going through, no matter what shit situation you're having at the moment, just kind of bear with it and understand that it's not going to last forever. Just make the changes that you need to make if things aren't feeling right, but also understand that like you have the power to make those changes. And when you do, you'll start to reflect back on it and see how that's made you a better person going forward. You literally just got to reflect and take the lessons rather than playing the victim. So
I'm not gonna lie to you, I have been in awe of you tonight. I literally sat here, I've seen myself here, I'm like,
we've been sitting, this has been a long podcast, Sam.
I know, mate. I look at the like going from,
I haven't needed to go to the toilet. I don't think none of us have.
Same, yeah. Being in school with you, Daniel James, and then seeing you now, it's like complete opposite. Do you know what I mean?
Same with you as well. Do you mean the both of you? Obviously, it's like we've all.
Hey! I had a higher education. Don't
you weren't scumbags like us. And
Hey, my school's still open.
We had a street education, mate. Street education, man.
That's all I'm saying. My school's still open.
Oh, connecting the dots. Do you know what I mean? If we were,
Hey, hey,
No,
I gotta be honest. Like it's just, like I said, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to mention what had happened. Like, I not to bring up, like I said, don't think it's a negative anyway, but not to bring up any negative things. It was just, it's important people know it because
yeah,
it makes you as a person, doesn't it?
Yeah,
this is it. Like I said to you earlier, it's something I've wanted to kind of talk about like openly for a while. You know, like my friends know about it and stuff, but it's something I wanted to mention because, like exactly what you said, right? It's you know, it was definitely out of character for me. You know, it wasn't who I am at all. It just showed that I was on the wrong path. You know, but I've definitely made amends to get through that and to become a better person and stuff. And I keep on. I intend on carrying that on. You know, but it's also made me who I am today and doing the things that I'm doing today. So like I say, you know, you can't regret things like that. Like I literally don't hold any regrets in my life because everything is there to teach you something, you know, and once you embrace that, it does changes your life.
Don't even regret ever fighting Matthew Davis in English corridor.
No, that wasn't me.
It was you.
That was Stormzy.
Well, it might be actually. Funny.
I was the one trying to split it up. I was like, your friends.
Class, mate.
you know what? No way, Matthew probably deserved it, did he?
Yeah. No,
I'm joking.
I think he was in it.
He's a good egg, to be fair, because when you were talking about the handstand thing.
He's going to be tapping. I actually remember. I think it was there. I don't know. It was just a little argument. I think they
I'm sure he was in it, so I won't mind Matthew for a change.
I think he was. Yeah, I can't really remember, to be honest.
That just stuck in my mind today for some reason. I don't know why.
Like 12 years ago, I think, was it?
I know, mad.
It's gone quick, man. We're old.
Yeah. You talk about, talk for yourself. You were talking about the handstand thing. That's why I was going to mention Matthew's name earlier because he was doing videos, like trying to do the handstand thing, and he kept falling over. And I was
just like trying to shag his face and stuff.
He does well for it, man. Considering all the times when he tries it, he's had a drink. Like I think he just went like it's a drink, and he'll end up trying to do that. And like the amount of times he's nearly broke his neck, the same as me, right? I nearly put my father's TV through doing handstands in the living room. Yeah, oh, it's bad. Like he said to me, he was like, he said, "You put that TV through." You know, he said, you see me trying to do it, and like you can see his anxiety's gone through the roof watching it.
Oh man!
Right, it's been good to talk to you, lads. I think we need to wrap it up now because we've been here two and a bit hours.
I was gonna say 2 hours 15. Is it not far off?
Yeah.
I think thank you, Steve, for having us on, mate. I think I've learned a lot of you tonight.
It's good to talk to you both. Like, for anyone listening, in terms of the socials, guys. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's ideasbeers.co, and it's Ideas and Beers on Facebook. So just to give a context to that as well, Ideas and Beers is a kind of a community platform. It's a community, you know, we do run events and stuff like that normally when we're not in a fucking pandemic, you know, and it's all about bringing like-minded people together and discussing different things, you know, just to better ourselves and to, like I said earlier with Johan Hari, to form a tribe really, you know, to help one another and stuff. So you know, feel free, drop me a message on Instagram as well, Ryan Stevens, or you know, or get in touch on the socials. And how do you, what about yourselves, guys? It's on Facebook, is it?
Facebook and Twitter, mate. So it's at Open Arms Podcast on Twitter, and then Open Arms Podcast on Facebook. Yeah. Like I said, we deleted our Instagram page because all trying to keep up with all three of them was trying to be mad. I used to love social media. Until I started opening up Twitter and Facebook for other things, and I'm liking things with Conor McGregor off the
I set it in the morning, like, you're getting on a podcast page first, you right there.
So, that's
hard trying to manage a couple of different socials, they got to be honest.
Yeah, like I said earlier, Instagram's just a birds in it for me, do you know what I mean? And all that. So it's felt like.
It's good to talk to you anyway, lads. Yeah, guys, thank you all for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Done. Well done.
Awesome.